Chapter 1065. Did she win? Seeing the malicious look in the shorty's eyes, Feng Wu smiled. Keep running. Why did you stop? The short assassin was full of despair. He had been so confident when he came here today to kill Feng Wu, but he had lost 2 companions before they could achieve anything. Realizing that he had nowhere to go, the shorty drew out his sword and struck at Feng Wu at an impossible angle. He had figured it out. With that mighty cultivator around, he had no hope of winning. In a situation like this, his only way out was to take Feng Wu hostage. However, when he struck at Feng Wu, he realized that his power had been suppressed. He had reached perfection in the spiritual elder stage, but had now regressed by an entire level. That was to say, he was a level 7 spiritual grandmaster now. How was that even possible? The shorty was astonished. Exactly what strange place had he set foot in? How could such a frightening thing happen? Feng Wu smiled. Welcome to my Tai formation. Your power has been reduced by an entire level. Now, we can start. She struck out. During those 7 days, Feng Wu was only able to master 3 stances of Fallen Star swordplay. The first stance of Fallen Star swordplay, Sword of the Other World. Feng Wu's sword swept through the air, blowing cherry blossom petals down from the tree. The shorty grinned maliciously. Even when I'm a stage weaker, I'm still more than you can handle. His blade glinted. Clang! The blades clashed, sending sparks into the air. Feng Wu stumbled back 7 steps, but the shorty was only pushed 1 step back. He looked surprised. Aren't you a level 4 spiritual grandmaster? From that strike, he could tell that Feng Wu was more than that. Feng Wu smiled. A level 4 spiritual grandmaster. I haven't been that for quite a while. She was right. The assassins had been sent by the Zhuo family, for they knew what cultivation level she was at. After that assassin failed in the alley, they hadn't waited long to send another one. A fierce look flickered in Feng Wu's eyes. The Zhuo family was almost impossible to guard against. The second stance of Fallen Star swordplay, Dancing Dragon in the Moonlight. Feng Wu had been pushed back 7 steps to counteract the impact of the shorty's strike, and she now dashed toward him, swift as a ghost. The next second, Feng Wu nimbly moved her wrist and stabbed at the shorty's heart. It was so fast. And the angle she struck at was impossible to defend against. The shorty had a ferocious look in his eyes and his face twisted. Shielding his chest with his sword, he sent a streak of sword energy at Feng Wu. Clang! There was another violent fluctuation of energy. Feng Wu stumbled back 3 steps. This time, the shorty did the same. He stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. How could this happen? He had been winning just then, but why were they exerting the same level of energy all of a sudden? He was sure that he was still performing like a level 7 spiritual grandmaster. You. If the shorty had looked down on Feng Wu in the beginning, he was on the alert now. Her expression unmoved and her gaze calm, Feng Wu raised her sword. In the Tai formation, immense spiritual essence gathered around her, and invisible sword energy spread out from her. All of a sudden, the shorty looked scared. Shit! That sword energy was so terrifying. At that moment, Feng Wu raised her flaming sword. The third stance of Fallen Star swordplay, Fatal Thunder. After Feng Wu's furious cry, tremendous sword energy rushed toward the short assassin. He had thought that he would be able to withstand her attacks, but at that moment, fear filled his eyes. Chapter 1066. No, I am a level 7 spiritual grandmaster. He was scared, for he saw that he was going to lose. Thud. Feng Wu's sword pierced his belly. Feng Wu could have stabbed him in the heart, but she didn't, for she had plans for him. Blood gushed out of the shorty's mouth. He turned to stare at Feng Wu with a look of disbelief. He couldn't believe it. He had lost to a girl. Holding the hilt, Feng Wu pulled flaming sword out. There was the sound of splashing blood. Just then, Feng Wu felt something click inside her. Was this happening? She could make a breakthrough just like that. Without thinking, Feng Wu stuck flaming sword into the ground, then sat down cross-legged. With Chang San's protection, the shorty wouldn't get the chance to harm her. Feng Wu had crippled the short assassin, and he lay crumpled on the ground and watched blood ooze out of the hole in his stomach. He could sense the life draining slowly from his body. Overwhelmed by a mix of rage, regret, and frustration, he turned to look at Feng Wu. He was surprised by what he saw. He thought that Feng Wu was going to kill him, but at that critical moment, Feng Wu sat down cross-legged. What was she doing? The next second the shorty was dumbfounded. A breakthrough? That girl was making a breakthrough after fighting him. And she was doing it in front of him. A breakthrough was exactly what Feng Wu was having. She had already reached perfection as a level 6 spiritual grandmaster and was very close to level 7. She had been waiting for a chance, and the fight tonight had inspired her. Hence, Feng Wu sat down and began to make a breakthrough, ignoring the fact that the assassin was still there. There was the sound of the fluctuation of spiritual essence. Xiao Wu, are you a level 6 spiritual grandmaster now? Resting her arms on the wall, Chaoge looked at Feng Wu in excitement. Feng Wu smiled. No, I'm a level 7 spiritual grandmaster now. Chaoge was speechless. She had no idea when Xiao Wu became a level 6, to say nothing of the fact that she had become a level 7 in such a short time. Chaoge had thought that she was making quick progress, but her speed was nothing compared with Feng Wu's. No. Without another word, Chaoge turned to run off. Where are you going? Feng Wu was bewildered. To work on my cultivation. Chaoge clenched her fists and left after those words. They were all still junior cultivators, and the difference in their capabilities wasn't that great. It would grow bigger as they became stronger. Chaoge feared that she might not even be capable enough to be Feng Wu's friend anymore. Chaoge wasn't the only one stunned by Feng Wu's breakthrough. After hearing this, the others all ran back to their rooms and started cultivating. The shorty watched with his mouth agape. Was everyone in Fallen Star Yard that diligent? Getting to her feet, Feng Wu clapped her hands and smoothed out the non-existent wrinkles in her clothes. Then, she crouched down in front of the shorty and stared at him with a half-smile. You can start talking now. About what? The assassin gritted his teeth. Feng Wu stared at him like he was an idiot. Did you think I spared your life for you to breathe fresh air? I'm not going to tell you anything. Just kill me. Feng Wu smiled. I see. You're not afraid of me. Good. Feng Wu winked at General Chang. Chapter 1067. This terrifying teenage girl. She noticed that General Chang had lost his patience already, and he looked like he couldn't wait to make his move. As soon as Feng Wu rose to her feet, General Chang went over to the assassin. The general was as capable as befitting someone whom Jun Linyuan had taught himself. In less than 5 minutes, the torture made the shorty wish he was dead. He gave Feng Wu everything she wanted to know. Someone found the flying guillotine and put a price on your head. The reward is as much as 100,000 top-grade spiritual stones. 100,000? Top-grade spiritual stones? Feng Wu rubbed his chin. I didn't know I'm that expensive. General Chang glanced at Feng Wu. The flying guillotine always charges a lot. 100,000 is just slightly higher than the standard price. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. These three are spiritual elders, and are levels 7, 8, and 9 respectively. This is the second attack. I won't be surprised if there's a third wave. You better be prepared. Feng Wu asked, there's more? General Chang nodded. The mission is to kill you, but it's failed. With these three dead, the flying guillotine will reevaluate you. They'll reassess your threat level and value, so as to raise the price and give the job to spiritual lords, who charge more. How many spiritual stones does a spiritual lord normally charge for a job? Feng Wu frowned a little. She was used to plotting against people all the time, not the other way round. You're not important enough for a spiritual lord yet. They won't take just any job, given how high their asking price is, it won't just be double the amount. Feng Wu was relieved. But a bunch of spiritual elders will be a lot to handle, too. Feng Wu secretly rejoiced, feeling lucky that she had snapped up General Chang. Otherwise, she didn't know what could have happened tonight. She could ask for Grand Secretary Feng's help, but she couldn't go to him all the time. All of a sudden, Feng Wu's eyes flickered. Did the Zhuo family send them? Asked Feng Wu. General Chang shook his head. They'll never reveal information on their clients, or no one will hire them again. Feng Wu smiled. Although she had no evidence, not everyone had 100,000 spare spiritual stones lying around. Only someone who hated her to the core would be willing to pay such a huge amount. The Zhuo family was her instinctive guess. It had to be them and no one else. Feng Wu smiled. They can't reveal their clients, but... She grinned at the shorty. If other people can put a price on me, can I do it to them? General Chang glanced at Feng Wu, amazed by her quick reaction. The short assassin smirked. Once you're on the list, you can't turn it around, or it'll disrupt order in the assassination circle. That made sense. If one side put a price on their rival, and the other side did the same, there would be a price war, and things would get messy. The organization would gain profits in the short term, but its long-term development would be hampered. Alright, Feng Wu was able to pick up the implication immediately. I can't put a price on them, but someone else can, right? The shorty nodded, and couldn't help but pity the people who had hired him. This terrifying teenage girl wasn't as harmless and weak as assessed by his organization. Feng Wu didn't know what Chang San did, but the tough assassin had just become very obedient. Their organization was a very secretive one, and people couldn't just walk into their stronghold. They would need directions. Chapter 1068 The Dark World. Clearly, Feng Wu's threat worked, and the shorty had no choice but to tell her how to find his organization. Go to the grocery store at the end of the 3rd alley on East Avenue and ask for Guan 7. He'll show you in, but you have to be there before dawn. Feng Wu looked up at the sky and saw that it happened to be the right time. She nodded a little, then went back to her room. What about these two? Chang San's voice came from behind her. Feng Wu smirked. They tried to kill me, killing them would be too good for them. Just leave them in the Tai formation. They'll become human fertilizer. Human fertilizer? Both the assassins who were still alive stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. What did she mean by human fertilizer? Feng Wu smiled. Exactly what it sounded like. The Tai formation consumed a lot of spiritual essence. Although she could get it from all those top-grade spiritual stones underground, the spiritual essence which these two had would work as well. Feng Wu put on her disguise, and soon, she was unrecognizable. Chang San stared at her in astonishment, unable to recognize this ordinary, sallow teenage girl who looked no different from the rest of the crowd. Feng Wu waved at Chang San. You don't need to come with me. I'll be exposed if you show up. Although the news hadn't gotten around yet, once everyone learned that Chang San was the captain of her guard, they would easily make the connection. Chang San asked, Are you sure? Feng Wu waved him off. It's fine. Stay here. No one will recognize me when I look like this. Convinced, Chang San nodded. In the dark, Feng Wu moved as nimbly as a cat and soon disappeared into the night. At the end of the 3rd alley on East Avenue, there was a small orange lamp. Feng Wu didn't know that assassins could run their business in an actual store, let alone on East Avenue, the busiest street. That was interesting. Feng Wu was intrigued by the mysterious boss of the flying guillotine. Following the shorty's instructions, Feng Wu knocked on the door. 3 long knocks and 2 short ones, repeated 3 times. After the knocking, a quiet voice asked on the other side of the door, it's the middle of the night. Who is it? It sounded like a standard question, but it contained some secret information. Answer incorrectly and one would only be welcomed by an ordinary shop assistant. The correct answer, on the other hand, would lead you to an assassin organization. Feng Wu used a husky voice. I've come from afar and I ask for a bowl of water. It had to be those exact words in that exact order. As expected. The door opened with a creak after those words. Feng Wu didn't look around after she walked in, but only glanced at both sides out of the corners of her eyes. The layout looked like a grocery store. The shelves were lined with daily supplies and looked perfectly normal. But then, a young assistant went up to Feng Wu. Miss, what are you looking for? That was the second code. Luckily, Chang San had interrogated those two assassins separately. After questioning them repeatedly, he only gave the information to Feng Wu after making sure that they gave the same answer. Do you have lotus silk of ice silkworms? Feng Wu asked with an indifferent look on her face. The young man remained passive as he said to Feng Wu, we don't display such precious goods on the shelves here. Please come with me. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. She was getting somewhere. Following the young man, Feng Wu saw him raise a curtain at an opening, so she followed him in. One moment, they were in a grocery store that smelled like daily life. The next second. Chapter 1069 The Girl from Frozen Forest 1. Feng Wu felt an eerie, chilly air surround her. On the other side of the curtain was a world of light with rich colors, while on this side lay a cold, dark world. The moment Feng Wu stepped into this dark world, for some unknown reason, she was secretly excited. Guided by the young man, Feng Wu arrived at a small dark hut. It was narrow and unlit except for a single dim lamp on the bar counter in front of her. The bar counter was quite high and almost reached Feng Wu's chest. It looked a lot like a pawn shop. Behind the counter sat a person, whose face was hidden in the dark. Feng Wu couldn't see it clearly, but she could tell that the person was elderly. Young lady, please fill in this form. Feng Wu took the form and read it. She was supposed to fill in things like the person she wanted to kill, their capability, background, and so on and so forth. Who should she kill, then? In fact, Feng Wu had been thinking about that question on her way here. If it were up to her, she would have Zhuo Ming killed. With their clan head gone, the Zhuo family would be much less of a problem. Therefore, Feng Wu filled in the form with Zhuo Ming's information. Once the form was filled, Feng Wu put the pen back on the pen rack. She then blew the ink dry and handed the form back. Zhuo Ming's name was big and clear. The old man in the dark took the form with scrawny fingers, and soon, there were some clacking sounds. Resting her hands on the counter, Feng Wu stood on tiptoe and looked into the shadows. That was strange. There was a light, so no matter how dark the shadows were, she should be able to see his features a little. But this man didn't seem to have any facial features at all. The eerie, grim, and dark atmosphere and cold wind gave one the creeps. But Feng Wu was a bold girl. Instead of being scared, she secretly reveled in it. Before long, the sound of the clacking abacus stopped. Soon, the filled form was handed back to Feng Wu. At the bottom of the page was the price of this contract. Seeing the number, Feng Wu's pupils contracted and she felt like crying out. That was so expensive. The flying guillotine was as efficient as they were said to be. That was quick. Feng Wu stared at the mysterious man inside in astonishment. That's a lot of money. Feng Wu had thought the 100,000 top-grade spiritual stones on her was already a high enough price, but the price on Zhuo Ming was. You still have 2 more chances. The old man spoke in a cold voice. Feng Wu's expression clearly said that she couldn't afford it. Feng Wu scratched her head. Well, she wouldn't be able to pay for it even if she dug up all the spiritual stones under Grand Secretary Fang's house. So, Zhuo Ming could wait. She would do it herself someday. Since she had 2 more chances. An idea struck Feng Wu. how about switching one? Feng Wu wrote quickly. Before long, she filled in Zhuo Qinghuan's information and handed the form in. The mysterious man glanced at the form and started calculating on the abacus again. The clacking sound got louder. It seemed to go on forever. Feng Wu was a little more hopeful, thinking that since Zhuo Qinghuan was still a spiritual grandmaster, she wouldn't be too expensive to kill. The man spent a little less time with this form. About 5 minutes later, the piece of paper was handed back. Feng Wu felt like crying out when she saw the number this time. That's so expensive. But why? Feng Wu couldn't accept it. Chapter 1070 The Girl from Frozen Forest 2. The number on the page read, 1 million top-grade spiritual stones. You've got to be kidding me. Feng Wu had thought that the 100,000 top-grade spiritual stones on her head was expensive enough, but why did Zhuo Qinghuan cost 1 million? That was 10 times what Feng Wu herself cost. Isn't she a spiritual elder? Why is she so expensive? I don't agree. Feng Wu shouted at the man inside. The mysterious man probably hadn't heard a protest like this before, and was noticeably taken aback. But he came back to himself soon enough. Taking the paper back, he began to write. Soon, he listed the calculation process. Feng Wu saw the list and almost jumped to her feet. Jun Linyuan's probable fiancé, 50% increase on the fee. True Phoenix blood, 50% increase on the fee. The final pupil of the Master of Firmament Palace, 50% increase on the fee. Feng Wu felt like vomiting blood. So, Zhuo Qinghuan was 10 times more expensive because of all those things? Damn it! Feng Wu clenched her fists. I can't afford that. The man inside didn't show any reaction to Feng Wu's words. Feng Wu asked, I still have another chance, right? Another form was handed out. Feng Wu nibbed on the end of the pen. She only had 3 chances, and she had wasted the first 2. She had to make this one work. Which of the Zhuo family members should she kill? Feng Wu began to run down the Zhuo family tree in her head. Forget about old Master Zhuo. Killing him would cost a fortune. Even if she could afford it, the flying guillotine probably wouldn't have an assassin capable enough to kill him. She couldn't afford the price to kill Zhuo Ming. Zhuo He was dead. She should probably forget about the other members of that generation. Moving down the family tree, her best choice was probably one of Zhuo Qinghuan's siblings. Feng Wu ran through her memory and recalled that Zhuo Qinghuan had a younger sister, Zhuo Qingyu, who seemed rather annoying. Zhuo Qinghuan also had 2 older brothers and 2 younger ones. Zhuo Ming was very virile. Feng Wu recalled that Zhuo Qinghuan's second older brother was Zhuo Qinglu, and he had been there when Zhuo Qinghuan destroyed her true phoenix blood. Feng Wu still vividly remembered his malicious smirk. It was never too late to take revenge. Zhuo Qinglu it was, then. Feng Wu wrote down Zhuo Qingliu's name. There came the clacking sound of the abacus again, and shortly afterward, Feng Wu was given back the piece of paper. Feng Wu was relieved when she saw the content. Finally, the price wasn't exorbitant this time. Of course, while it wasn't as expensive compared with the price before, it was still very high. Zhuo Qinglu was a mere spiritual grandmaster. He didn't hold any important position, nor was he the favorite child of the family. Moreover, he visited brothels all the time, which made him a very easy target. Hence, he had the same price as Feng Wu, 100,000 top-grade spiritual stones. Feng Wu snorted inwardly, wondering if the contract on her had "easy target" written on it as well. After handing the form back, Feng Wu asked, "Can I pay with spiritual medicine?" Yes. Hence, Feng Wu started to take medicinal pills out. Feng Wu didn't have much money, but she had medicinal pills, for she was an extraordinary medicine refiner. Her master had set a rule forbidding her from selling her pills for money. To this day, Feng Wu still couldn't understand why. But she wasn't selling them now, but using them as currency. That wasn't against the rule, right? Shall I pay a deposit now? The full amount. The person inside sounded baffled. He then added in a quiet voice, there will be 3 attempts. You'll be paid back in full if the target isn't killed after that. Chapter 1071 The Girl from Frozen Forest 3. Good. Feng Wu gathered all the spare medicinal pills she had and was able to raise 100,000 top-grade spiritual stones worth. She then handed them over. It'll be done in 7 days, the voice said quietly before Feng Wu left. Feng Wu smiled a little. It was expensive, but if Zhuo Ming knew that his family was being hunted by the flying guillotine as well, would he put a price on other people's heads so casually after this? It was the break of dawn when Feng Wu was ready to go home. The sky had just started to brighten up, though it was still dim outside. Along the silent street, a figure as nimble as a cat jumped from roof to roof at top speed. Right at that moment, all of a sudden, Feng Wu felt a streak of spiritual essence sweep over her. That was. Feng Wu looked down to find a carriage racing along the street. She had no idea who the passenger was, but that streak of spiritual essence definitely came from inside the carriage. Feng Wu stared at the carriage. It was lit up from inside by 2 lanterns. They had the insignia of Northern Feng Mansion on them. Could it be Lady Northern Feng, her godmother? Feng Wu wondered if she should go down and say hello. However, it was Feng Sun inside, not Lady Northern Feng. Feng Sun had just gotten back from the suburbs, where Master Ling Hu lived. He was covered with sweat after a long night of training, and was dozing off in the carriage. He wanted to go back home more than anything else, so that he could lie down and sleep. The training was a rough stretching session which was so intense that all his tendons were cramping, and he was almost crying at the pain. It just so happened that Feng Sun had a nose sharper than a dog's. He was resting with his eyes closed when he caught a faint scent. A scent? It was so familiar. Nothing would have happened if Feng Sun had let it pass. That way, Feng Wu would be able to go home as planned, and so would Feng Sun. Unfortunately, something dawned on Feng Sun. And he caught that idea in a fleeting moment. Ah! Feng Sun cried out. It's her. Her. Then, the guards of the mansion watched as their young lord rushed out of the carriage, rambling words that no one else understood. Moreover, he jumped onto the roof right away. My lord. The guards were baffled when their young lord ran away. They followed him immediately. Feng Wu looked over her shoulder to find Feng Sun behind her. She smiled and was about to greet him when Feng Sun ran toward her, roaring, "You ugly girl! I finally found you. Stop right there." Feng Sun's words were a thunderclap in Feng Wu's ears. Ugly girl. Feng Wu saw the light right away. She wasn't dressed like the ugly girl from the forest of northern border city before, but she had the same sallow skin, which was created by the same cream. Ugly, stop. I know the smell of the cream you used to cover your face. It's you. Stop running. Feng Wu knew what this was about before Feng Sun finished talking. The cream had given her away. And Feng Sun. The last thing Feng Wu would do right now was say hello to him. She would blow her own cover. She turned and started running right away. You're running away. How dare you? Feng Sun yelled angrily. He couldn't believe this was happening. Feng Sun recalled everything that had happened in Frozen Forest of Northern Border City. He had been so nice to that girl. Chapter 1072 The Girl from Frozen Forest 4. When Xian Yi tried to cast that girl out, Feng Sun stood up for her. Boss Jun didn't like her, but Feng Sun still looked after her. He had trusted her despite everything, and what happened after that? That little scumbag stole their immortal spiritual fruit. They were going to save Bao with that. Ah! Feng Sun shouted in vexation. He had been too tired to even move a finger, but after spotting the ugly girl, his speed was frightening. Feng Wu ran in the front and would look over her shoulder from time to time, only to realize that the distance between them was getting smaller and smaller. That wouldn't do. If Feng Sun caught up with her and forced her to wash the makeup off. Feng Wu couldn't begin to imagine the look on Feng Sun's face when that happened. All Feng Wu wanted to do now was find a quiet corner and wash that cream off her face. That should do the trick. Feng Wu was pondering that idea when thud. From close behind, Feng Sun hit her with something. Instantly, a stench filled Feng Wu's nostrils. Feng Sun guffawed. Ugly girl, I bet you're thinking about finding a place to wash that disguise cream off your face, so that I won't find you. Am I right? Feng Wu threw a dirty look at Feng Sun over her shoulder. The look on her face reminded Feng Sun of an angry bunny, and he cracked up. That's a stink bug, and that smell will stay on you for the next 24 hours once it hits you. Ha ha ha. You won't be able to hide from me. Feng Wu was infuriated. Was she supposed to give in just like that? Never. But if she kept running in a straight line over the roofs, Feng Sun was sure to catch up to her. She had to get to the ground. The winding alleys were her only hope. At that thought, Feng Wu leapt, moving as fast as a streak of lightning. She jumped off the roof and rushed into a house on her left up ahead. Feng Sun smirked. Where do you think you're going? Feng Sun's guards had caught up to him and were following him with loud footsteps, which woke many people at this early hour. Feng Sun turned around and told his guards, "Go tell Xian II and Boss Jun that I've found the ugly girl. Get them here ASAP." He didn't dare to treat this lightly. After all, a chance like this didn't happen every day, and he couldn't afford to lose her again. It hurts. Taking a deep breath, Feng Sun realized that his muscles were sore from head to toe, and he felt really weak. She just happened to show up on the day he had an intensive stretching session. Otherwise, Feng Sun was convinced that he would have caught the stealthy girl if his condition was as usual. Jumping into the back garden of a house, Feng Wu wanted to hide, but the smell was so strong that she knew she wouldn't be able to get away with it. Involuntarily, Feng Wu reached into her ring space to look for some pills. She remembered that she had made some air freshener, but never got around to using it. That was why she had left it in some remote corner. Her search came back empty. She searched again and still found nothing. Ah! Feng Wu smacked her head in frustration. She remembered now. She had indeed made some air freshener and left it in a corner, but a moment ago, when she had tried to pay for the bounty. She took out all her spare medicine, and that air freshener had been in the pile. At that thought, Feng Wu wanted to smack her own head. That was so. Ugly girl, you're not getting away. Just then, Feng Sun jumped off the wall as well and dashed at Feng Wu. However, just before he reached her. Chapter 1073 The Girl from Frozen Forest 5. Thud. He stepped into a mud pit. But it was more than a mud pit. It was filled with dog shit. Feng Wu had covered the pit with leaves. In the dim light at this hour, and with the stench around Feng Wu, Feng Sun missed the pit and stepped right into it. As soon as he stumbled into the pit, Feng Sun shrieked. Arg! Feng Wu chuckled into her palm. That's what you get for chasing me and refusing to leave me alone. Of course, Feng Wu didn't linger. She immediately turned to run. She knew perfectly well that Feng Sun's anger would drive him on a harder pursuit. That was her voice. Infuriated, Feng Sun cursed. He then pulled his feet out of the pit to find his boots covered in dog shit. Holding his breath at the stench, he took off his boots, tossed them aside, then ran after Feng Wu on bare feet. Ugly girl. Stop. Stop right there. Feng Sun sounded angry and frustrated. Feng Wu was anxious and didn't know what to do. She wanted to tell Feng Sun to stop. Trying to catch her would only harm them both. Feng Wu turned around and warned him, "Stop chasing me. You'll never catch me." Ha! Feng Sun snorted. Here's what I'm going to tell you, over my dead body. That's serious? Feng Wu cringed. Coming from Feng Sun, that was a massive grudge. So, Feng Wu's only option now was to run as fast as she could. But she couldn't run forever. Feng Sun on his own wasn't all that threatening, but if Xian Yi showed up later, or Jun Linyuan, Feng Wu knew that she wouldn't be able to get away. What should she do? Feng Wu racked her brain for a way out. The stink bug was her main problem. The smell was impossible to remove, and she would be found out wherever she went. Therefore, removing the stink was her top priority. But how? Feng Wu's thoughts whirled. Could she go to a pharmacy? Feng Wu shook her head. She could see that the pharmacy was still quite some distance away, and even Feng Sun would consider that possibility. Maybe he had already stationed someone outside the pharmacy. Air freshener, where could she find some air freshener? Yes. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. A brothel. Brothels were very particular about hygiene and wouldn't have any foul smells in their buildings. They had to have some air freshener around. Where were the brothels in the imperial capital? Feng Wu hadn't been to one, but she knew the imperial capital well enough to know the general direction. Feng Sun was still running after Feng Wu when he saw her change direction. He frowned. Where is she going? Shit. Feng Sun was quick-witted enough to figure out the answer. What's wrong? Xian Yi showed up at that moment. Quickly. That girl is heading for the brothels. Stop her. Xian Yi glanced at Feng Sun. Is she really that ugly girl? Yes. It's her. This may be our only chance. If we lose her, we may never find her again. Go get her. She smells like a stink bug. Feng Sun and Xian Yi were going to split up when, hey, are you chasing something? A teenager leaned against a banister and grinned at Feng Sun. It was none other than Yuminji. An idea struck Feng Sun when he saw Yuminji. Yuminji. He wasn't the only one who was tricked by the ugly girl in Frozen Forest. Yuminji was a victim, too. Chapter 1074. What a scene. Feng Sun felt that he was that close to catching the ugly girl, but Yuminji still didn't have a clue. At that thought, Feng Sun had a sense of superiority. Yuminji tapped his chin with a slender finger. Did I hear you talking about catching some ugly girl? It's none of your business and I'm not telling you. Feng Sun tried to drag Xian Yi away. He decided he would show the ugly girl off to Yuminji after he caught her. Feng Sun and Xian Yi left in a hurry. Behind them, Yuminji rubbed his chin with a brooding look in his eyes. The ugly girl. Wasn't that little Feng Wu? She had been spotted by Feng Sun. How careless of her. Yuminji couldn't bring himself to see Feng Wu getting mistreated. He followed them without making a sound. Feng Sun and Xian Yi ran very fast. When they got there, their men had already surrounded the busiest brothel in the imperial capital. Young lord, that girl slipped in here. Feng Wui, the captain of the northern Feng Mansion's guards, cupped his hands at Feng Sun. Feng Sun asked, all set? Feng Wui said, we have men everywhere in the area. There's no way that the girl can get away. Feng Sun nodded. However, recalling how stealthy the girl could be, he said to Feng Wui, go back and bring the dog here. Just as a precaution. After giving the instruction, Feng Sun and Xian Yi entered Perching Phoenix Terrace. The building known as Perching Phoenix was richly decorated and looked luxurious. Their nostrils were filled with a warm, pleasant smell as soon as they set foot inside. Madame Cui, the Madam of Perching Phoenix, was hosting some guests when a male servant came in. Young Lord Feng and young Lord Xian are here. Both were popular figures in the imperial capital. They might not know everyone, but everyone knew who they were. Mouths fell open after they entered the building. Madame Cui rolled her eyes grumpily when she heard those words. Are you kidding me? How would two prominent figures like them show up here? We might have some beautiful girls here in Perching Phoenix, but they aren't beautiful enough to draw those two here. The servant said hastily, It's true. They're already in the building. Madame Cui looked over her shoulder, just in case, and what she saw astonished her. Oh my! Young Lord Feng and young Lord Xian. To what do we owe this honor? Are you here to enjoy the flower festival of Fengqi, our Miss Perching Phoenix? The so-called flower festival was an auction for the rights to take the virginity of the girl known as Fengqi. Miss Fengqi, who was named after Perching Phoenix, had grown up in the brothel. She had learned drawing, chess, calligraphy, and musical instruments from famous teachers, and had been entertaining her guests with her talents rather than her flesh until she was 16. Tonight, Madame Cui decided to sell her at a satisfying price. Madame Cui's eyes lit up when she saw Feng Sun and Xian Yi. Talk about bigwigs and real descendants of influential families. She had been entertaining some young descendants of big families, but as soon as Feng Sun and Xian Yi showed up, Madame Cui wanted to give them all her attention. Although Madame Cui couldn't wait to serve these two, their minds obviously weren't on that Miss Fengqi. Feng Sun frowned and waved Madame Cui off. Out of my way. Go back to whatever you were doing. After that, he and Xian Yi headed for the stairs. An idea struck Madame Cui. Were they going backstage to look for Miss Fengqi directly? Young Lord Feng was using his rights as a young lord. A stage had been built at the center of the main hall. It was decorated with flowers of all colors and lit up brightly. Chapter 1075 Where S. Feng Wu. They had prepared enough flower petals for Miss Fengqi's performance later. In front of the stage, more than 20 chairs had been set out. Only the 3 chairs that were in the front row were made from expensive red sandalwood. There were 6 chairs in the second row, and in the third. Mu the sixth sat on the very left in the front row, which indicated that he wasn't the most important guest tonight, but the second most important. The one sitting in the middle was Zhuo Qinglu, the second son of the Zhuo family. Mu the sixth and Zhuo Qinglu found each other an eyesore, and were engaged in a secret competition to pick Miss Fengqi's cherry. Mu the sixth turned around to find Feng Sun in the hall and rose to his feet excitedly. Brother! Brother Feng! He left his seat and ran happily toward Feng Sun. It's you, little Mu the sixth. Feng Sun patted him on the shoulder. Brother, what brings you here? Are you here for Miss Fengqi as well? Teehee, since you're interested in her, I'll withdraw my bid. Mu the sixth was Feng Sun's minion, and more than anything, liked to follow Feng Sun around. He had bid for the VIP seat in the middle against Zhuo Qinglu just then, but lost to the latter by a narrow margin. Mu the sixth was still holding a grudge, now that his brother Feng was here. Ho ho! Mu the sixth took Feng Sun to the best seat, but Feng Sun waved him off. Don't let me keep you. I have an errand to run. Errand? Mu the sixth forgot about Miss Fengqi right away, for nothing could be more important than his brother Feng. Brother, what errand? Let me do it for you. Just name it. Mu the sixth looked at Feng Sun eagerly. Seeing how eager the guy was, Feng Sun snapped, You can't handle her. Out of my way. Go back to your game. After that, Feng Sun waved his hand and rushed up the stairs in Perching Phoenix. Gosh, dear young lord, Madame Cui was flustered. This was Perching Phoenix, a brothel which guys visited to have fun. Right now, it was business hours, and there was something going on behind all the closed doors. A felon has just run inside. If you still want to have a business, keep your mouth shut. Feng Sun looked up and threw an intimidating glance at Madame Cui. Feng Sun might be a goofball around Feng Wu, but when he meant to look the part, he was every bit a young lord. It worked on Madame Cui, who was utterly frightened. While Feng Sun rushed upstairs to search for the girl, what was Feng Wu doing? The moment she ran into Perching Phoenix, she instinctively headed for the pharmacy. The pharmacy at Perching Phoenix had as much incense as it did aphrodisiac. Feng Wu quickly went through the inventory after she entered, but to her disappointment, they didn't have the supreme-grade air freshener here. Luckily, Feng Wu was able to find a lot of woody ambergris. With this ingredient, Feng Wu would be able to make the supreme-grade air freshener herself. Time was of the essence, so Feng Wu grabbed a handful of woody ambergris and the necessary supplementary ingredients, then dashed into the kitchen on the first floor. Because important guests kept coming and going all the time, the kitchen was staffed the whole time, but only by 2 people, one of whom was dozing off. Feng Wu moved unbelievably fast and jumped into the kitchen as nimbly as a cat. She snuck up on the person who was still awake. Thump! Feng Wu hit the guy with the side of her palm, knocking him unconscious. She smiled a little. Immediately after that, she pulled the man up and sat him down in a chair. She even adjusted his position, so that from afar, he looked like he was only taking a nap. Chapter 1076 He-s Nothing. After all that was done, Feng Wu quickly went to the stove. That was right. She was going to use the stove to make that supreme-grade air freshener. Other people wouldn't be able to pull it off, but Feng Wu was a medicine refiner like no other. She could refine medicine even with a stove. Knowing that there was no time to waste, Feng Wu sped up. Feng Sun led his men to search the upper floor of Perching Phoenix. They opened one door after another, but weren't able to find the girl. That's strange, rubbing his chin, Feng Sun looked anxious. We've surrounded this place so thoroughly that even a bird can't get out. Where did she go? Feng Wu asked, Young master, can't you smell her? Feng Sun frowned. Of course he could if they were close enough, but not when they were hundreds of meters apart. It wasn't like he had the nose of a dog. Moreover, the air in this Perching Phoenix place was filled with a mixture of strong fragrances that could cripple any nose. He almost thought that he couldn't smell properly anymore. That ugly girl, Feng Sun clenched his fists. She was as cunning as a fox. With them at her heels, she was able to come up with the idea to hide in a brothel. That was quick-witted. Hey, is the dog here? Feng Sun stared at Feng Wu impatiently. It's on the way. We should have it soon, said Feng Wu with a bow. Guard the perimeter. We'll get her like catching a rat in a hole. She'll have nowhere to go. Feng Sun looked pleased with himself. His guards was still searching one room after another, and shrieks kept ringing out. But after they flashed the wooden token of Northern Feng Mansion, the shrieks soon stopped. Young lord, the 9 rooms in the east wing were searched. She wasn't there. Young lord, the 9 rooms in the west wing were searched. She wasn't there. Young lord. The 6 teams Feng Wu brought soon searched every room of Perching Phoenix, but they gave Feng Sun the report he wanted to hear the least. Feng Sun opened his eyes wide. No one found her. None of the underlings dared to meet his gaze. Feng Sun raised his voice. No one. His men held their breaths. The young lord could be very terrifying when he threw a tantrum. Only that, for the first time, the leader hesitated. This isn't the time to stammer. Speak. Feng Sun roared. The team leader said, only that, we didn't search Miss Fengqi's room. Why didn't you? Feng Sun snapped. Young Master Zhuo was there. After Feng Sun arrived, Zhuo Qinglu was worried that Miss Fengqi, the girl he had had his eye on all this time, would be taken away by Feng Sun. Therefore, he went backstage first. Miss Fengqi had given 2 performances already, and the 3rd one would determine her fate. Which young Master Zhuo? Feng Sun glared. Mu the 6th had been following Feng Sun, and he grinned when he heard that name. That's Zhuo Qinglu, the 2nd son of the Zhuo family. The team leader said, yes, young Master Zhuo the 2nd blocked the door and told us that we were offending Miss Fengqi. Who the hell does he think he is? Feng Sun glowered. Show me the way. Oh my. Mu the sixth was over the moon. Zhuo Qinglu had been so arrogant in front of Mu the sixth because he was the direct descendant of the Zhuo family, which was favored by the empire at the moment. Moreover, the Zhuo family had a daughter, Zhuo Qingwan, who was a rising star. Chapter 1077 Miss Fengqi. That was why when they were competing over the front row seat, Mu the sixth hadn't dared to confront him directly, but had done it in a roundabout manner. I know where he is. Come with me. I'll show you the way. Mu the sixth took off happily. With Feng Sun backing him, he was able to lead the way with his chest sticking out. He complained to Feng Sun as he walked, that Zhuo Qinglu is awful. He has all the vices you can think of. It was only the other day that I saw him snatch an innocent girl off the street, and it seems that he's gotten tired of her already. Now he's here, trying to take Miss Fengqi away from me. I've been courting Miss Fengqi since forever. I had a crush on her when she was 13 and I waited 3 whole years for her to reach the right age. And now, that Zhuo Qinglu shows up to steal my fruit. Brother Feng, I've never asked you for anything, but I really need your help this time. Please help me. Mu the sixth's affections seemed genuine, and he gave Feng Sun a pleading look. Feng Sun smacked Mu the sixth on the head. What? You want her as your wife? Mu the sixth glowered. Well, if not that, I can always make her my concubine. Brother Feng, one word from you and my mum will say yes. Brother. Feng Sun threw a dirty look at him. Help me catch that ugly girl today and I'll help you. Mu the sixth was thrilled. Great. That's great. Brother, what does that ugly girl look like? Any special features? He rolled up his sleeves and was ready to get his hands dirty. Feng Sun was about to describe the girl, but realized he didn't know how to. The girl had used some cream to disguise herself. She didn't look like herself and he had no idea if she was going to have a different face now. Feng Sun said in frustration, the girl looks. Well, forget about her looks and just sniff around. She was hit with a stink bug, and that smell won't go away for a while. Mu the sixth nodded eagerly. Sure. I'll find her for you. As they spoke, they reached Miss Fengqi's bedchamber. Miss Fengqi had played a musical instrument and sung. Right now, she was preparing for her third performance, which was a dance. Zhuo Qinglu was guarding the door, and he frowned when he saw the large group of people coming his way. Seeing Mu the sixth, who was leading the team, Zhuo Qinglu gloated and smirked. Loser, you've got some balls to come back. However, as soon as Zhuo Qinglu spoke, an impolite voice came from behind Mu the sixth. Who did you just call a loser? Wearing a heavy cape, Feng Sun showed up behind Mu the sixth. Young Lord Feng. Zhuo Qinglu stared at Feng Sun with a grim look on his face. Move. Feng Sun stared at him. Young Lord Feng, this is Miss Fengqi's. Before Zhuo Qinglu could finish the sentence, Feng Sun reached out and picked Zhuo Qinglu up like he was holding a chicken. Crash! Zhuo Qinglu smashed into the wall. The violent energy seemed to burn up his insides, and blood threatened to rush up his throat. Feng Sun ignored him and headed right into the room. Ah! A frightened shriek rang out inside. Miss Fengqi was changing into a complicated dress, which consisted of dozens of layers, but together, looked as thin as cicada wings. The teenage girl raised her head. She had delicate features and was blushing prettily. Her exquisite shoulder blades looked almost transparent under the light. Of course Miss Fengqi knew who young Lord Feng was. As for the guests tonight. Chapter 1073 The Girl from Frozen Forest 5. Thud. He stepped into a mud pit. But it was more than a mud pit. It was filled with dog shit. Feng Wu had covered the pit with leaves. In the dim light at this hour, and with the stench around Feng Wu. Feng Sun missed the pit and stepped right into it. As soon as he stumbled into the pit, Feng Sun shrieked. Arg! Feng Wu chuckled into her palm. That's what you get for chasing me and refusing to leave me alone. Of course, Feng Wu didn't linger. She immediately turned to run. She knew perfectly well that Feng Sun's anger would drive him on a harder pursuit. That was her voice. Infuriated, Feng Sun cursed. He then pulled his feet out of the pit to find his boots covered in dog shit. Holding his breath at the stench, he took off his boots, tossed them aside, then ran after Feng Wu on bare feet. Ugly girl. Stop. Stop right there. Feng Sun sounded angry and frustrated. Feng Wu was anxious and didn't know what to do. She wanted to tell Feng Sun to stop. Trying to catch her would only harm them both. Feng Wu turned around and warned him, "Stop chasing me. You'll never catch me." Ha! Feng Sun snorted. "Here's what I'm going to tell you, over my dead body." That's serious. Feng Wu cringed. Coming from Feng Sun, that was a massive grudge. So, Feng Wu's only option now was to run as fast as she could. But she couldn't run forever. Feng Sun on his own wasn't all that threatening, but if Xian Yi showed up later, or Jun Linyuan, Feng Wu knew that she wouldn't be able to get away. What should she do? Feng Wu racked her brain for a way out. The stink bug was her main problem. The smell was impossible to remove, and she would be found out wherever she went. Therefore, removing the stink was her top priority. But how? Feng Wu's thoughts whirled. Could she go to a pharmacy? Feng Wu shook her head. She could see that the pharmacy was still quite some distance away, and even Feng Sun would consider that possibility. Maybe he had already stationed someone outside the pharmacy. Air freshener, where could she find some air freshener? Yes. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. A brothel. Brothels were very particular about hygiene and wouldn't have any foul smells in their buildings. They had to have some air freshener around. Where were the brothels in the imperial capital? Feng Wu hadn't been to one, but she knew the imperial capital well enough to know the general direction. Feng Sun was still running after Feng Wu when he saw her change direction. He frowned. Where is she going? Shit. Feng Sun was quick-witted enough to figure out the answer. What's wrong? Xian Yi showed up at that moment. Quickly. That girl is heading for the brothels. Stop her. Xian Yi glanced at Feng Sun. Is she really that ugly girl? Yes. It's her. This may be our only chance. If we lose her, we may never find her again. Go get her. She smells like a stink bug. Feng Sun and Xian Yi were going to split up when, "Hey, are you chasing something?" A teenager leaned against a banister and grinned at Feng Sun. It was none other than Yuminji. An idea struck Feng Sun when he saw Yuminji. Yuminji. He wasn't the only one who was tricked by the ugly girl in Frozen Forest. Yuminji was a victim, too. Chapter 1079 Not Going Anywhere. What was more, she saw Xian Yi leaning against a tree with a sword between his crossed arms. He only had to look up to spot Feng Wu. Xian Yi then lifted his head involuntarily and seemed alarmed. Frightened, Feng Wu cringed, and without thinking, fell back into perching phoenix. No doubt she was trapped here. Feng Wu was stumped, but not for long, for she heard approaching footsteps, along with the sound of Feng Sun's berating. She was just here. How come you didn't see her? Find her for me. Feng Sun and Xian Yi were going to meet up, and if one drew a straight line between the two of them, Feng Wu was right in the middle. She turned around and headed for the backyard of Perching Phoenix. She hid herself in one of the rooms. Behind her was an erotic scene, and the sound of suggestive panting filled the air, but Feng Wu wasn't affected at all. She knew she couldn't remain here. From what she knew of Feng Sun, she was sure that he would widen the search and turn every room upside down, even those he had already searched. Feng Wu frowned at that thought. Raising an arm, she sniffed at herself. The scent was very faint now, and wouldn't be detected if she kept her distance from him. But where was she going to hide now? The last thing Feng Wu wanted was to be caught, for that would lead to the incident with the immortal spiritual fruit. Jun Linyuan had disliked her to begin with, and if he knew the truth about the fruit, he would definitely strangle her himself. Just then, Feng Wu heard more footsteps, accompanied by angry shouts. Come out! Come out for an inspection. We're from Northern Feng Mansion. Arrest them all. The shouts were like a death knell in Feng Wu's ears, and the footsteps were getting closer and closer. Feng Wu did the calculations in her head. At this speed, they would reach her in less than 3 minutes. She couldn't hide here any longer. Meanwhile, the couple on the bed had also reached the climax. Since the front door was blocked, Feng Wu rolled over the floor and quietly made her way to the window. She then reached out and slowly cracked open the window. She snuck out through the window, closing it behind her as if it had never been touched. On the bed, the girl's eyes flickered as she asked bewilderedly in between pants, "Did the window open?" Lying on top of her, the man turned his head toward the window as he thrusted. It was tightly shut without a crack. The girl wanted to say something, but the man stopped her with a kiss. Crawling over the wall like a spider, Feng Wu quickly moved toward the end of the corridor where the lights were the brightest. For she knew that the most dangerous place could also be the safest. With the faint scent still on her, she wouldn't be able to hide anywhere. Hence, she would rather remain out in the open, that way, Feng Sun might look past her. Hiding outside a window of the brightly lit building, Feng Wu listened carefully. It was quiet inside except for the sound of a couple kissing. Good. Feng Wu took the opportunity to sneak in through the window. She landed silently on the floor and closed the window behind her. She moved as smoothly as a floating cloud. The two people in the room were none other than Miss Fengqi and Zhuo Qinglu. Their feelings for each other were mutual, and they were both lost in the passionate kiss as they ignored everything else. Feng Wu hid in the shadow of a closet, where she wouldn't be spotted unless one looked closely. Chapter 1080 Quicker than words can describe. Feng Wu noticed that she was in a very spacious room, which looked like a dressing room separated into 2 halves by a giant screen in the middle. On one end was a busy scene, where young girls in identical seductive dresses were busy putting on makeup. On the other side of the screen, Miss Fengqi and Zhuo Qinglu couldn't get enough of each other. Young master, Fengqi wants to serve you and keep you company forever. Please don't say no. Fengqi. So, this is the famous Miss Fengqi, thought Feng Wu. Qi, don't worry. That Mu the Sixth won't be able to do anything. I, Zhuo Qinglu, promise you that I'll win the bid tonight and make you mine from now on. Zhuo Qinglu. Feng Wu couldn't believe her ears. What an incredible coincidence. She had only just put out a hit on Zhuo Qinglu with the assassin organization, and here he was, right here in Perching Phoenix. Feng Wu tentatively stuck her head out and stole a glance at the man. Her eyes lit up. It really was Zhuo Qinglu. She would never forget his face, for Zhuo Qinglu had been there when Zhuo Qingluan destroyed Feng Wu's true phoenix blood. Moreover, Zhuo Qinglu was the one who had held Feng Wu down so that Zhuo Qingluan could do it. Feng Wu's eyes blazed with hatred at the sight of her old enemy. Miss Fengqi seemed concerned. But if young Lord Feng intervenes? Zhuo Qinglu smirked in satisfaction. Don't worry. I have an idea. Miss Fengqi pressed, what's your plan? Zhuo Qinglu held nothing back from the girl he liked. Taking a packet of medicine out of his chest pocket, he waved it in front of Miss Fengqi. I have this baby. You're going to poison. Miss Fengqi blanched in fear and looked like she was going to faint. Zhuo Qinglu said with a straight face, of course not. It'll only keep him on the toilet longer. Zhuo Qinglu only feared that Feng Sun would suddenly lose his mind and steal Fengqi away. Just then, there was a quick knock at the door. Chi, Chi, the sun's about to rise and it's time for your dance. The guests are all waiting. Are you ready? Freeing herself from Zhuo Qingliu's arms, Miss Fengqi answered, yes, Mama, just a second. After that, Miss Fengqi headed for the door. But Zhuo Qingliu wouldn't let her go that easily. He pulled her back and gave her another long, passionate kiss. Something then stirred inside Feng Wu. A dance? Feng Wu looked around. The dance wasn't solo, but had dozens of backup dancers. If she could hide in the crowd. Just then, quick footsteps approached outside the door, and Madame Cui spoke again. Young lord, you're back. Haven't you searched this room already? That was Madame Cui. Feng Sun's face was livid. That ugly girl was definitely here in Perching Phoenix, but he couldn't find her no matter what. How could a girl be so sneaky? Feng Sun. Feng Wu was alarmed. No, sitting around here would only get her caught. Seeing that everyone was distracted by the conversation outside, Feng Wu scanned the room with her bright eyes. One of the dancers was standing very close to her. She was already dressed for the part and was retouching her makeup. Feng Wu decided to choose her because half of the girl's face was covered with feathers. It would make her hard to recognize. What happened next was quicker than words could describe. Chapter 1081 Feng Wu on stage. Feng Wu was as bold as ever. She snuck up on the girl and knocked the latter unconscious with the side of her palm. She then quietly dragged the girl into the closet, then changed into her clothes, hairpiece. After that, Feng Wu copied the girl's makeup. With the feathers that covered her face, Feng Wu was able to achieve the seemingly impossible makeover. Quickly, everyone on stage. Now. Madame Cui rushed the group of dancers out of the room like a hen ushering out chicks. Chi, Madame Cui looked at Miss Fengqi in a regretful manner, then pulled the latter out of Zhuo Qingliu's arms. Quickly, you're needed downstairs. Zhuo Qingliu was an ideal choice, but young Lord Feng had shown up and Madame Cui was completely biased toward Feng Sun, despite the fact that Feng Sun showed no feelings for Miss Fengqi. Feng Wu hid herself well in the crowd and quickly followed them out. The sound of musical instruments soon rang out in the main hall on the first floor. Miss Fengqi was dancing in the center of the stage, and was surrounded by the others like the moon among the stars. This was Feng Wu's first time dancing this piece, but luckily, she was a backup dancer and one of many among the crowd. It didn't take her long to catch up with the others. Meanwhile, Feng Sun was searching room after room for Feng Wu on the second floor. He couldn't understand it. That girl had to be here in Perching Phoenix, but why couldn't he find her? It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Frustrated, Feng Sun smacked the banister, making a loud bang. On stage, Feng Wu stole a glance at Feng Sun as she moved along with the music. She was secretly elated when she saw how vexed he was. The last place Feng Sun could imagine she would hide herself was on stage. Just then, Feng Wu sensed a cold gaze on her. To be more precise, the gaze was directed at the center of the stage. It was Xian Yi. Feng Wu noticed that Xian Yi was leaning against a column with his sword between his crossed arms and a cold look in his eyes. She felt a chill run down her spine. Involuntarily, she danced more properly than before. Otherwise, Xian Yi's sharp eyes would pick her out in no time. Feng Sun came down the stairs, looking infuriated. Seeing him like that, Mu the Sixth rose to his feet in a hurry. Brother, please have a seat. Because of Feng Sun and Xian Yi's arrival, 2 more seats had been added to the first row. Feng Sun sat down in frustration, then grabbed a cup of tea and gulped it down. Mu the Sixth followed Miss Fengqi's dancing with an infatuated look on his face, while making an effort to talk to Feng Sun. Brother, did you not find the girl you were looking for? Feng Sun only snorted. Mu the Sixth said, Brother, don't be mad. We have more than enough girls here in Perching Phoenix. Look at those on stage. They come in all shapes and sizes. Brother, all you need to do is name one and I'll bring her to you. Feng Sun gave him a, "You idiot," look and couldn't be bothered to reply. Those girls on stage were nothing compared with that ugly girl. She might not be pretty, but she had the most amazing eyes. One would never forget them after they saw those eyes. All the girls on stage were just commonplace women. Meanwhile, Feng Wu wanted to jump for joy on stage. Good. Xian Yi was going to stay here in the main hall. After this dance, she could jump over the wall and get herself out of this mess. Feng Wu was a little anxious, for this piece was quite long. Seeing that Feng Sun was staring blankly at the stage while his mind had wandered off, Feng Wu. Chapter 1082 Slightly nervous. And Feng Wu grew anxious. She desperately wanted the dance to end, so that she could make the great escape before Feng Sun showed up in front of her. Before long, the music slowly came to an end with the last note lingering in the air. Finally, it was over. Standing in place, Feng Wu let out a breath of relief. Because of the curtain call, Feng Wu stood in the second row until the very last moment. Mu the sixth grinned. Brother, look. With all the feathers covering half their faces, the girls all look so mysterious. What do you think? Feng Sun was in an impatient mood and had no interest in any of the girls. After knowing someone as beautiful as Feng Wu, even Miss Fengqi was an ordinary woman in Feng Sun's eyes, not to mention those girls around her. He couldn't even be bothered to glance at them. Feng Sun then rose to his feet. Feng Wu was secretly relieved. Finally, he was leaving. However, Feng Sun paused as soon as he stood up. He spun around and stared at the girls on the stage. What did you just say? Feng Sun stared at Mu the sixth. Mu the sixth was dumbfounded. What did I say? Feng Sun said, repeat it. Mu the sixth said, I said the girls came in all shapes and sizes. The next sentence. If you like any of them. The one before that. Half of their faces are covered with feathers. Feng Sun snapped his fingers. That's it. After that, he stared at the girls on the stage with a grin, then walked toward them. Seeing Feng Sun get onto the stage, everyone's eyes shone curiously. Was young Lord Feng really interested in Miss Fengqi? Zhuo Qingliu's face was livid. Feng Sun had said only just then that he wasn't interested in Miss Fengqi, but why did he suddenly? Damn it! Clenching his fists, Zhuo Qingliu stiffened. If Feng Sun really wanted to use his power to take the girl away, there was nothing Zhuo Qingliu could do. He was getting closer and closer. Feng Sun had gone up to Miss Fengqi and was reaching out. Thrilled, Miss Fengqi shivered and blushed in expectation. If young Lord Feng really had his eye on her, she would be much better off with him than becoming Zhuo Qingliu's woman. Feng Sun had indeed reached out, but he only pushed Miss Fengqi aside. Out of my way. What? Miss Fengqi stood there, baffled. Her face turned so red that her cheeks seemed to be bleeding. Damn it! Meanwhile, Feng Wu grew nervous. It was obvious that Feng Sun had grown suspicious of the girls on the stage. Feng Wu still smelled faintly of that bug, and she would be easily spotted if Feng Sun got too close. What should she do now? Feng Wu's heart raced. She was in the second row, and right now, Feng Sun was standing in front of them with his hands behind his back and a bone-chilling look in his eyes. Take your feathers off. Feng Sun stared at them with a grim look on his face. The title of young Lord Feng alone was enough to intimidate them. Although the girls had no idea why the young lord gave that order, they still removed the feathers from their faces as told. Because of her tight schedule, Feng Wu had been a little hasty with her makeup. She could make it work with the feathers on, but without them, she had a 70% resemblance to the girl she had been disguised as before. They stood in two slanted lines. When Feng Sun walked past them, he could see all their faces in one go. Feng Wu. Chapter 1083 Couldn't get any more dangerous. Feng Wu was a little on edge, but the more nervous she was, the calmer she looked. No one could tell how agitated she was deep down. Luckily, Feng Wu had put on her makeup, mimicking the dancer she had replaced. Otherwise, she would have been found out already. After searching the group, Feng Sun frowned. Because he couldn't smell the cream which the ugly girl had used to disguise herself. That was to say, that girl wasn't wearing it at the moment. What Feng Sun didn't know was that with the right skills, even ordinary makeup could be used to disguise one's face, it was just that it wouldn't last as long. Feng Sun didn't see the familiar face at first glance, nor did he catch the scent. He frowned. Could it be that he had been mistaken? Was the girl not among the dancers? Feng Sun looked at the faces again. Your names. Feng Sun snorted. The others didn't think much of it, but Feng Wu was dumbfounded. That was because she didn't know the name of the girl she was impersonating. And she couldn't make up one, for everyone on stage knew the girl's name. What should she do? She would be exposed. By then, the others were already giving out their names. From the left to the right in the first row. Chang Xian, Fan Yifeng, Zhang Danlan. The girls in the first row soon finished giving their names, and it was the second row's turn. However, Feng Wu still didn't know who she was supposed to be. Her back was already soaked with sweat under her clothes. Feng Wu wanted to ask around to find out the girl's name, but she couldn't do it when Feng Sun's attention was fixed on them. An idea struck her when it was going to be her turn soon. She stepped on the foot of the girl in front of her. "You Shueka, what did you do that for?" The girl in the front turned around and glared at Feng Wu. She realized that Yu Shueka seemed to have a smaller face tonight, and wondered if she was seeing things. The girl in front of Feng Wu was called Yu Yu, and she was a little curious. However, with young Lord Feng still around, she didn't dare ask further questions. She quickly turned back around and resumed her position. "What were you talking about?" Feng Sun stared at Yu Yu. Yu Yu was so nervous that she stammered. I. She stepped on my foot, so. If Feng Sun had pressed Yu Yu and asked her if she felt something was out of place, Yu Yu would have told him. But he didn't. He only stared at those in the second row. Soon, it was Feng Wu's turn. Feng Wu stuck out her chest. "Yu Shueka." She didn't know what the real Yu Shueka sounded like, so she deliberately made her voice husky. Feng Wu was able to keep her cover and she felt like giving herself a thumbs up. Her identity had stayed hidden and Feng Wu was able to make another narrow escape. "Brother, what's wrong?" Mu the Sixth looked at Feng Sun in bewilderment. "Why do you look like you're looking for a fugitive?" Feng Sun smirked. "That's exactly what I'm looking for. When I find her, I'll skin her alive and drink her blood." Feng Wu's stomach lurched. Luckily, after another look around, Feng Sun still couldn't find Feng Wu. In the end, he had no choice but to leave the stage. Feng Wu heaved a sigh of relief. If one were to look closer, they would see that Feng Wu had sweat all over her back, which had almost soaked through her clothes. Just when Feng Wu thought she was out of the woods, there was the sound of a dog barking from the front door. All heads turned to the door. Those were some fierce growls. Feng Wu stared at the dog that had just entered the door. Chapter 1084 Ha 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 ha. Point 1 Look and Feng Wu narrowed her eyes dangerously. It didn't look good. The dog was covered in glossy, fine black fur and was as tall as 2 meters. Its appearance was very intimidating. It was a type of detection dog, which was highly sensitive to scents. Feng Wu was immediately alarmed. She was going to be discovered. She was sure of it. Since she was standing in the back row, Feng Wu was able to stealthily move backward when all eyes were on the front door. She might never get a better opportunity than this one. After backing away 10 steps, Feng Wu turned to run. The dog had made such a grand entrance that no one noticed that Feng Wu had gone. Only that. Arf. Arf. Arf! The giant dog exploded in a fit of barking. It had been on a leash, but at that moment, it charged out, as fast as a streak of lightning. Following the dog's direction, Feng Sun saw the back of someone wearing a light pink dress. He remembered that person. She was the fifth girl in the second row on stage. He grabbed Yu. That person behind you, what did you tell her? Frightened by Feng Sun, Yu shivered. Even her voice trembled. I didn't tell her anything. Speak. She just accidentally stepped on my foot, so I asked Fu Xueka what she did that for. Hearing that, Feng Sun looked like he had just been slapped hard. He could almost feel the pain in his cheek. It had to be her. The girl knew how to change her face and she could easily pretend to be someone else, but she didn't know the name of the girl she was impersonating. The thought of him being so close to catching the girl just then made Feng Sun want to punch someone. By then, Xian Yi had dashed out like a shooting arrow. Go! Feng Sun roared, then charged out. He was cursing loudly in his head. That girl was so smart. She was able to hide herself among the dancers, and she danced so well. She danced as well as the others and one couldn't tell the difference. Did she really not practice beforehand? At the same moment, Feng Wu. Her face had never looked this grim and dark before. Xian Yi was already running after her. If he was by himself, Feng Wu still had the confidence to evade him the way she had evaded Feng Sun. However, that sharp-nosed dog was really making things impossible. Feng Wu had studied the area when she was up on the building, and knew that there was a river just outside the east wall. She didn't like the idea of jumping into a river in such a cold season, but she was out of ideas. Plop! Feng Wu jumped onto the 20-meter wall, then flew down like an eagle with its wings spread out. Feng Sun arrived to see the person that he was chasing jump into the water. He smirked. Out of all the paths, you just chose the one that would lead to your doom. I got you, ugly girl. Standing high up on the wall and looking at the dark river, Feng Sun laughed loudly with his hands on his waist. Yes, there was a river on this side and there were no guards. But Feng Sun had made it that way deliberately. It was like closing up the three sides of a square and leaving a single side open. And that side was the trap. That was why Feng Sun laughed when he saw the ugly girl jump into the water. The dog was going to jump in after her, but Feng Sun stopped it. Chapter 1085. Catch her. Don't worry. I've got a net charged with thunder energy in the river. She's not going anywhere. Xian Yi darted a look at Feng Sun. Feng Sun didn't feel like laughing anymore. That look Xian Yi gave him made him feel like an idiot. I don't see anything. Xian Yi glanced at Feng Sun. Feng Sun said, the thunder net can stun a person unconscious. The girl jumped in on her own, and should have been stunned by now. It's only normal that you don't hear anything. Xian Yi asked, really? Feng Sun said earnestly, yes. Yes. Xian Yi rubbed his chin. What if I told you that she's already gotten away? Feng Sun looked baffled. I begged Boss Jun to give me that net, and you know how resilient it is. It's as precious as immortal restraining rope. How is she supposed to have gotten away? Xian Yi narrowed his eyes. But he really couldn't sense the girl anywhere. Feng Sun said grumpily, if that's the case, get her out of there already. I can't wait to see her real face. After having been tricked by the girl so many times, Feng Sun felt so satisfied at finally catching her. The net had been laid out all over the bottom of the river. When it was gathered together, it was no bigger than an adult's fist. However, when spread out, it could cover as large an area as one wanted. Its greatest advantage was that it could be spread out or compressed according to the width of the river. Feng Sun didn't let other people do it, but drew the net in himself. He looked increasingly pleased as more of the net was drawn out of the water. Ugly girl, I'd like to see what you can do once you're in my hands. But soon, the smile vanished from Feng Sun's face. The net was out of the water and plenty of small fish were hopping around on the finger-thin threads. However, where was she? The smile froze on Feng Sun's face. Where was she? Where is she? After gathering the net, Feng Sun saw that a hole big enough for a teenage girl to pass through had been opened up in the net. Feng Sun and Xian Yi exchanged surprised looks. Feng Sun stamped about in a frenzy. How's that even possible? That's a thunder net, and it's as capable as immortal restraining rope. How can someone break out of it? Is she a loach or something? How can she be so slippery? Xian Yi glanced at Feng Sun, wanting to tell the latter that he had told him so. The guy just wouldn't listen, and had missed his best chance. That's not right. Feng Sun took Xian Yi's hand. The net is unbreakable and it's charged. How did she break it? That's not the most important question now. You should really focus on finding her. Xian Yi gave Feng Sun a sympathetic look. Back in Frozen Forest, Feng Sun had been deceived the worst, which was why Xian Yi could understand his grudge. Feng Sun gritted his teeth, but had to accept the truth. He clenched his fists in frustration. She had to have escaped by water. You lot, follow the river downstream and catch her. That ugly girl couldn't stay in the water forever. When she hit the shore, she was bound to leave traces. Feng Sun had the dog sniff the air and find the direction that the ugly girl had fled in. But the dog only shook its head. It dove into the river, stayed for a long while at the bottom, then resurfaced and ran in the opposite direction. That girl. Feng Sun snorted. Luckily, he had the dog with him. Otherwise, the girl would have tricked him again. Feng Sun swore that when he caught the girl, he would teach her a lesson. He would tie her up so that she wouldn't be able to go anywhere. Chapter 1086 Smart Little Feng Wu. The dog swam fast in the water. Feng Sun and Xian Yi were running fast along both banks of the river. At the same moment, Feng Wu thought she had sensed the thunder net the moment she dove in, but there was no way out and she could only move forward. Because turning around would surely get her caught, but she might have a chance if she kept moving forward. At that thought, Feng Wu dashed forward at full speed. In the process, Feng Wu realized that although the thunder net was called a net, it was made from the same material as immortal restraining rope. Before, Chang San had tied Feng Wu up with immortal restraining rope and Feng Wu had thrown a tantrum at Jun Linyuan for that. But Feng Wu had also asked Jun Linyuan how to untie the rope, for she didn't want to be trapped in such a passive and hopeless situation again. Maybe Jun Linyuan had sympathized with her, for he actually taught her. At that thought, Feng Wu smiled. Feng Wu had the ice and fire attributes, and ice and water shared a common origin. Therefore, she was at home in the water. With the method Jun Linyuan taught her, she made a hole in the thunder net, then turned around and waved Feng Sun goodbye. At that moment, Feng Sun was guffawing at the water with his hands on his waist. Swimming as swiftly as a fish, Feng Wu fled through the hole to her freedom. She went on swimming fast underwater. She only resurfaced several hundreds of meters away, when she heaved a sigh of relief. At that moment, she turned around to find Feng Sun pulling the net out. No. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. After Feng Sun took the net in, he would soon realize that she was gone. Soon, they would start another round of pursuit, and she had only bought herself less than 5 minutes. Run! The water would slow Feng Wu down greatly. Therefore, Feng Wu jumped ashore after seeing some thick grass. She quickly washed the makeup off her face, then changed into a teenage boy's outfit. Having been in the water for a while, the smell on Feng Wu had become even fainter. Even that sharp-nosed dog would have a difficult time sniffing Feng Wu out, not to mention Feng Sun himself. After putting on boy's clothes, Feng Wu erased all traces, then headed for the city's busy area. After that entire drama, morning had already arrived. Common people in the imperial capital got up early. The sun had just risen, but the farmers from the outskirts were already filing into the city, carrying loads of vegetables on their shoulders. Feng Wu wore an outfit made from coarse cloth. She handed an old farmer some silver when she spotted the latter. "Grandpa, how about this silver for all your vegetables?" Feng Wu had deliberately deepened her voice so that she sounded like a teenage boy whose voice was changing. The old man was more than happy to oblige. He wouldn't be able to sell all these vegetables for 100 bronze coins, but was now getting silver, which was worth 2,000 bronze coins, for them. What a sweet deal. The old man nodded repeatedly. Sure, sure. Carrying the load on her shoulders, Feng Wu hid herself among the rest of the vegetable sellers, then followed them to the market. After blending in, she was a lost target to Feng Sun, who had finally arrived. Feng Sun could only stare at his dog. "Your turn." The dog gave him an aggrieved look. More and more people were pouring into the street, and that special scent was getting fainter. The dog looked around in bewilderment. Feng Sun was so anxious. He had gotten unbelievably lucky this time. If the girl changed the way she looked again, he wouldn't know how to find her next time. Where was Boss June anyway? Why hadn't he arrived? If he were here. Chapter 1087 Catching Feng Wu. Feng Sun stomped his foot in frustration. Just then the dog charged out in another direction at an incredible speed. It headed for the food market. Feng Wu had thought that the dog wouldn't be able to pick up the scent anymore, but as it turned out, she was wrong. She frowned. Meanwhile, the running dog had already frightened a lot of people. Out of the way. Everyone out of the way. The dog forced its way through, not caring about the crowd at all. It ended up knocking a lot of people off their feet. Its eyes were flickering red, and it kept its gaze on Feng Wu, as if it was going to jump her the next moment. Meanwhile, Feng Sun and Xian Yi were right behind the dog. Feng Wu looked over her shoulder. Further ahead was the food market, where the crowd was even denser. Without thinking, she threw her baskets at the dog, then took off. Only after Feng Wu fled did Feng Sun realize who the dog had been chasing. He had never expected that the ugly girl could. Was she a born actress? How did she become a teenage vegetable vendor in such a short time? Feng Sun said to Xian Yi, "If I hadn't thrown that stink bug at her, we might have never found her." Xian Yi nodded in agreement. That was a very impressive girl. With their current capabilities and power, together with their guards and a sharp-nosed dog, they were still unable to catch her. That was proof enough of how stealthy she was. I have to catch her this time. Feng Sun made up his mind. Feng Wu made her way through the crowd like a nimble fish, checking herself for the remaining scent as she ran. Without the scent, Feng Sun would never be able to find her. Feng Wu sniffed and found that the scent was almost gone. In less than an hour, it would disappear completely. All she had to do now was evade Feng Sun for the next hour. Everything was fine in the beginning. The street was packed with people and Feng Wu kept changing directions, making it impossible for the dog or Feng Sun to catch her. But Feng Sun wasn't dumb. He bellowed at the crowd, telling them to leave the street. Otherwise, they would be considered to have offended Northern Feng Mansion. Northern Feng Mansion. No one could afford such an accusation. Hence, everyone moved toward the sides, creating a passageway wide enough for 3 people to walk shoulder to shoulder. Feng Wu was left alone on the street and was spotted right away. Go! Feng Sun and Xian Yi dashed off at top speed. Feng Wu turned around to see that those two were almost upon her. She took off right away, as if she was sliding on ice. However, the next second, Feng Sun leapt up and struck Feng Wu in the back with his fist. Feng Wu stumbled forward, blood spurting out of her mouth. She couldn't stop coughing. Immediately after that, Feng Sun put a foot on her back. Ugly girl, there you are. You won't get away this time. Feng Wu felt like screaming. Feng Sun had stomped on her so hard that she almost fainted. Seeing that Feng Wu wasn't speaking, Feng Sun snorted. He then picked Feng Wu up so that she could face him. His usually handsome face had a bone-chilling look on it. He stared at Feng Wu with a malicious grin on his face. I'd like to see you run now. Chapter 1088 Young Lord Feng has snatched a teenage boy. Feng Sun picked Feng Wu up and their faces were only inches apart. Feng Sun glared at the ugly girl. There were so many questions he wanted to ask her and he desperately wanted to teach her a lesson. However, he turned around to find a large crowd around them. Moreover, they were all watching the two of them curiously. Feng Sun didn't want to make a scene in public, and he snorted. Let's go back. He would wait until he was back at Northern Feng Mansion. By then, Feng Wui had already brought Feng Sun's horse over. It was a tall, mighty-looking horse that was taller than Feng Wu. Feng Wui had thought that Feng Sun would leave her to one of his underlings. As a matter of fact, that was what Feng Wui suggested. My lord, how about I take this ugly girl? Feng Sun only snorted at him. Are you going to take responsibility if she goes missing? Feng Wui was rendered speechless. He bowed, then backed away. Feng Wu was sorry to hear that. If Feng Wui had stood his ground, she would stand a much better chance of escaping if she was handed over to Feng Wui. Turning his head, Feng Sun saw the look on the ugly girl's face, and he smacked her on the head. Are you thinking of running away? You'll never get the chance as long as you're alive. Ha! Feng Sun then recalled all the painstaking effort he had gone through to catch this girl. He hadn't gotten any sleep the night before. As he spoke, Feng Sun lifted Feng Wu onto the back of his big horse. Hiya! The horse ran so fast that the wind blew into Feng Wu's mouth. She couldn't help but cough, and went on coughing. This Feng Sun. Feng Wu was never the type to eat humble pie. She still held a grudge toward Feng Sun for stepping on her back. Hence, help me, young Lord Feng is taking me, an innocent boy, against my will. Xian Yi was on a horse behind Feng Sun and heard everything. Even someone as stern as him couldn't help but crack, to say nothing of Feng Sun, the man in question. Right now, Feng Sun's face had gone purple. Taking an innocent boy against his will. That was as bad as snatching a woman off the street. This abominable girl. Feng Sun wanted to smack the girl's head into a pancake. To make it worse, there were so many people here, and everywhere he turned, he saw a large crowd. They didn't dare to look up at him, but stole glances out of the corners of their eyes, as if he wouldn't notice. Feng Sun could imagine what they would say after he was gone. Infuriated, Feng Sun threatened them, spread baseless rumors and I'll cut your heads off. Feng Wu was about to start acting again, when Feng Sun threw a dirty look at her. One more word and I'll strangle you right here. Seeing that Feng Sun meant it, Feng Wu cringed and swallowed the rest of her sentence as she stared at Feng Sun. Hiya! The tall horses disappeared at the other end of the street. Feng Wu turned back to look at the gossiping commoners, finding it quite amusing. Smile again and I'll strangle you. Feng Sun warned her in a threatening voice. Feng Wu asked in bewilderment, My lord, you do know what they're talking about, don't you? Feng Sun said, Shut up. Feng Wu said, You know, you could have explained yourself to them just then. Why didn't you? Feng Sun said, Ha. Feng Wu said, I mean it. They were so shocked because they thought I was a boy. You could have taken my hat off. That way, I would have been a girl again. Chapter 1089 The young lord likes boys. Feng Sun looked shocked. She was right. Why didn't he think of that just then? Those people had to be gossiping behind his back now, saying that he was into boys. So, you worry about what other people say about you, too. Do you want to take me back there and explain yourself? Feng Wu spoke quietly behind his back. Feng Sun. He wondered where this annoying girl came from. Why could she set him off as soon as she opened her mouth? He was so mad. Seeing that Feng Sun had really lost his temper, Feng Wu was pleased. However, realizing that after he took her to Northern Feng Mansion, he would soon uncover her real identity, Feng Wu was conflicted again. What was she supposed to do now? Just then, the tiger cub, who had been staying in her ring space, stuck its head out of her sleeve, then jumped into her chest pocket. As a beast that had signed a contract with Feng Wu, the cub could communicate with Feng Wu telepathically. What? You can, Feng Wu cried out inwardly. The cub nodded. Yes. Feng Wu's eyes darted around as she tried to figure out a way to escape. Feng Sun desperately wanted to know the real identity of the ugly girl, so he rode as fast as he could. Before long, they arrived at Northern Feng Mansion. The guards outside saw that it was their young lord, and opened the gate wide to let him in. Jumping off his horse, Feng Sun walked in with Feng Wu in one hand. He was going to go back to his No Mercy Yard. As Feng Sun carried Feng Wu toward No Mercy Yard, Feng Wu was trying to figure out a way to escape. Looking over her shoulder, she saw that because Feng Sun was walking very fast, the two of them were all alone here. No Mercy Yard was right ahead of them. What happened was quicker than words could describe. Stuffing some spicy powder into her mouth, Feng Wu bit Feng Sun's wrist hard. Ah! Feng Sun screamed in pain. Involuntarily, he dropped Feng Wu. Had this ugly girl gone nuts? She had bitten him. As soon as Feng Sun let go of her, Feng Wu moved backward as nimbly as a loach. Feng Sun yelled angrily, "Stop right there. Stop!" Feng Wu made a face at him. Like hell she was going to stop. Feng Sun smirked. Do you think you can run away like that? Stop! Feng Wu ignored him and ran even faster. Feng Sun was about to run after Feng Wu, when he realized in surprise that he couldn't move. He looked down at his wrist. Feng Wu's teeth had left marks on him, and the wound was bleeding. A white liquid was also oozing out. What was that? Feng Sun was terrified. His head was spinning and he could see stars. He then swayed from side to side, feeling awful. That stinky girl. Feng Sun. Just then, Xian Yi rushed in with his sword over his shoulder. What's wrong? Xian Yi steadied Feng Sun. He had thought that nothing would go wrong after they got the girl back to Northern Feng Mansion. How could something like this happen? Go get her. Go catch that ugly girl. I'm gonna kill her. Ah, Feng Sun took a deep breath. Luckily, the dizzy feeling gradually faded and was almost gone. Looking up, Xian Yi saw the dog disappear into the distance. Hence, Xian Yi dashed off after the dog. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was headed for the wall. She wanted to get out of Northern Feng Mansion. But the dog wouldn't leave her alone. Chapter 1090 The Critical Moment. But she just couldn't get rid of it. At that critical moment, the tiger cub jumped out of Feng Wu's chest pocket and rushed toward the dog. Then, to Feng Wu's surprise, the palm-sized cub smashed the dog on its head with one front paw, which reminded her of a boy master disciplining his servant. That smack baffled the dog right away. Moreover, the cub had also stuck something on the dog's nose. The dog tried to bite the cub after it came back to itself. However, the cub showed its teeth at the dog and made a threatening sound. The dog had been very intimidating, but the cub was more intimidating and powerful. One had no idea what kind of heritage the cub had, but the dog was losing ground as one watched. Feng Wu looked up to find Xian Yi running in her direction. An idea struck her all of a sudden, hence, she jumped onto the wall and landed on the other side. However, she then hid herself in the branches and jumped back in. But Xian Yi only saw Feng Wu jumping out and not coming back in. Therefore, when he got to the wall, he patted the dog on the head. Go get her. The dog nodded, barked, then jumped over the wall. By then, Feng Sun had finally regained his mobility and hurried over. Feng Sun, Xian Yi, and the dog jumped over the wall, then began to run down the wide street. Feng Sun smacked his own head in frustration as he ran. How can I be so stupid? Why did I let my guard down? That girl is so cunning. Xian Yi didn't know what to say. For he had been careless as well, thinking that nothing could go wrong after they got her back to Northern Feng Mansion. But they had underestimated the girl's brain. She had escaped even in this situation. They ran for a while before they realized that something was wrong, for the dog stood in the middle of the street and looked around in bewilderment. It looked exhausted. Feng Sun was flustered when he saw the state the dog was in. Oh God! My dear dog, you can't be ill now. I need you more than ever. Taking the dog's head in his hands, Feng Sun tried to cheer it up. You're going to break its head. Xian Yi couldn't watch anymore, and pulled the dumbfounded dog away from Feng Sun. What's the matter with my dog? Feng Sun was almost in tears. The bug's scent was only temporary, and after everything the girl had done, it was barely detectable. If something happened to the dog now. Oh God, Feng Sun wanted to slap himself. Xian Yi rubbed the dog's nose. It's been drugged. Feng Sun. Blue veins popped on the corner of his forehead and he looked like he was going to explode. That girl drugged me as well as the dog. How could she do that? She. Ah. Feng Sun almost lost his mind. Xian Yi was also at a loss as to what to do. That girl was impossible to catch. He turned to Feng Sun. The most important thing now is to fix the dog as soon as possible. That way, we may still have a chance of catching that ugly girl. Otherwise, we'll lose her forever. Feng Sun smacked her head. You're right. Let's go. Xian Yi asked, where to? Feng Sun said, go find little Feng Wu. Isn't she a great doctor? I bet she can help my dog. Come. Let's go to the Feng clan. Chapter 1091 Boss Jun will avenge her. So far, Feng Sun and Xian Yi still had no idea that the ugly girl whom they had been chasing all night and the one that had pissed them off, was Feng Wu. Carrying the dizzy dog, Feng Sun and Xian Yi rushed to the Feng clan as fast as their legs could carry them. But they were soon disappointed. What? Little Feng Wu isn't here. Feng Sun was baffled by the news. How can she not be home so early in the morning? Where did she go? Chaoga glared at him. How am I supposed to answer that? Feng Sun said, can you at least try to be nice? Resting her hands on her waist, Chaoga said, Xiao Wu isn't here. Leave or stay and wait all you want. Pardon me. After that, Chaoga spun around and marched back inside. She closed the door behind her with a thump. Hey, you! Vexed, Feng Sun was about to throw a tantrum when, my lord, there was an indifferent voice. Feng Sun turned around and his eyes lit up. Wasn't that Chang San? What are you doing here so early in the morning? Feng Sun was intrigued. Hey, I had someone deliver to you a message for Boss Jun. Did they find you? Chang San was surprised, then smiled bitterly. My lord, I'm no longer the captain of the guard for the Crown Prince's residence. I'm working as the captain of the guard for Fallen Star Yard now. What? Feng Sun and Xian Yi exchanged surprised looks. Why so sudden? Chang San gave them a wry smile without saying anything. It was indeed unexpected. He had only been transferred the night before. Intrigued, Feng Sun decided to get to the bottom of it. Did you do something to little Feng Wu? You offended her somehow. Was that why Boss Jun avenged her? Chang San cried out in surprise, how did you know? Feng Sun laughed. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, I was right. I knew it. I can't be the only one. Ha ha ha. My lord? Asked Chang San. Feng Sun patted Chang San on the shoulder and said in an understanding tone, little Chang San, you need to keep your eyes wide open. Your boss June likes little Feng Wu too much to admit it. Offending little Feng Wu is an unforgivable crime to him. So, do you understand now? Chang San used to be half in the dark, but after Feng Sun's explanation, and connecting it to what Feng said before, he soon saw the light. He took 3 steps back to create some distance before he bowed to Feng Sun with great respect. My lord, that was enlightening. I'll never forget your great kindness. Feng Sun grumpily waved him off. It's nothing. Xian Yi was the one who made me see the light. If he hadn't reminded me repeatedly, I would still be as dumb as you are now. Hey, by the way, what did you do to offend little Feng Wu? Feng Sun's eyes shone curiously. Chang San smiled bitterly. Before he could reply, Xian Yi patted Feng Sun on the shoulder. The gossip can wait. Have you forgotten our priority? Feng Sun remembered what he was here for. That was right. The most important thing now was to cure the dog and go back to hunting down the ugly girl. Feng Sun patted Chang San on the shoulder. I'm off. See you around. Enjoy your time in Fallen Star Yard. Poor Feng Sun and Xian Yi. If they had bothered to ask one more question. If Chang San had told them that he had offended Feng Wu because of what he had done with that immortal restraining rope, the two of them might have been able to make the connection with the Thunder Net. Chapter 1092 complained to Lady Northern Feng. However, they didn't ask and had thus lost the most important lead. While Feng Sun was searching everywhere for Feng Wu, where was Feng Wu at the moment? Feng Sun was at Feng Wu's place, but Feng Wu was at his home. After jumping back over the wall, Feng Wu quickly made her way through the woods and ran behind some rocks. With her nimble fingers, she quickly removed all the makeup from her face, changed into her normal outfit, and came out in a pink dress. Why, isn't it Miss Feng Wu? Someone said a few steps away, sounding pleasantly surprised. It was Ziyuan, Lady Northern Feng's maid. Feng Wu smiled politely. Soon, Ziyuan led Feng Wu to Lady Northern Feng's main courtyard. It was still early, and Lady Northern Feng was having breakfast. Because General Feng was stationed at the northern border all year long and wouldn't come back for years, Lady Northern Feng usually had her breakfast alone. Xiao Wu. Seeing Feng Wu, Lady Northern Feng's eyes lit up. Feng Wu greeted Lady Northern Feng respectfully, but before she could finish, the enthusiastic Lady Northern Feng had already ushered her into a chair. Lady Northern Feng said, "It's still so early. Xiao Wu, you haven't had any breakfast, have you? Ziyuan, get me another bowl and chopsticks." Ziyuan replied with a smile, "Of course." The lady looked so lonely when she ate alone, and Ziyuan was glad to see her have some company. Taking Feng Wu's hand, Lady Northern Feng started babbling. "Why are you here so early? Has something gone wrong?" Feng Wu smiled. "Of course not. How could anything go wrong? I'm fine." Lady Northern Feng said, "If it's not you, then my brat Feng Sun has made a mess out there, hasn't he?" Feng Wu waved her hand. "How could he? Of course he hasn't. My brother's doing fine. Please don't be mad at him. You'll make yourself sick." What did she mean by, "he hasn't," then, "don't be mad at him," and, "you'll make yourself sick"? She was practically telling the lady that Feng Sun had made a mess. Fearing that her quick temper would frighten the girl, Lady Northern Feng bellowed at the servants outside, "Get Feng Sun's ass down here." Ziyuan went in a hurry. However, when she came back, instead of Feng Sun, she brought Steward Wang of No Mercy Yard. Lady Northern Feng's face darkened right away. "Where's Ah Sun?" Steward Wang smiled bitterly. Lady Northern Feng frowned. "Ah Sun isn't the type to ignore my order to see him. Since he's not here." "He's not here, is he?" Steward Wang dropped to his knees. "He didn't come back last night. Where did he go?" Lady Northern Feng's face was livid. She knew that Feng Wu was discreet, so if the girl had come to warn her, that just proved how big a trouble Feng Sun was in. The lady's angry voice made Steward Wang tremble. The young lord went to West Mountain to see Master Linghu. He didn't come back last night, perhaps because he stayed there overnight? Lady Northern Feng waved her hand. Get the chief steward here. The chief steward arrived and explained everything. The young lord had Feng Wui take the guards out last night. They took the dog, too. The dog referred to that big dog from last night. Northern Feng General found it by accident a few years back, and apart from Lady Northern Feng and the young lord, no one else dared to go near it. Where's Feng Wui? Lady Northern Feng bellowed. The chief steward said, Feng Wui led a team of guards out. I think they're after someone. After whom? Lady Northern Feng pressed in an intimidating tone. Chapter 1093 Poor Little Feng Sun. The chief steward said, I think they were after a good-looking teenage boy. A teenage boy? Lady Northern Feng was bewildered. Why is he after a teenage boy? Lady Northern Feng couldn't for the life of her figure it out. Xiao Wu, just tell me. What did your brother Asun do this time? Feng Wu looked conflicted. But in fact, she was thrilled inwardly. Ha ha ha. Feng Sun, that's what you get for chasing me half the night. An eye for an eye, thought Feng Wu. Despite her excitement, Feng Wu kept her face demure and serious. Well, it's no big deal. Lady Northern Feng threw a dirty look at Feng Wu. If that really is the case, then why did she skip breakfast and rush here at this hour? It has to be very big, thought Lady Northern Feng. Just tell me, Lady Northern Feng prompted her. Feng Wu asked, do you really want to hear it? The lady said, I thought you were a straightforward kid. What's with this stuttering? Spit it out. Feng Wu said, well, actually, I'm only worried that you won't be able to handle it. Lady Northern Feng said, just tell me. What on earth had that brat done to make little Feng Wu so conflicted? Leaning over, Feng Wu whispered in Lady Northern Feng's ear. She only said one sentence, but Lady Northern Feng was petrified. What? Is that true? Lady Northern Feng stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, yes. Lady Northern Feng asked, are you telling me that your brother Sun likes men? Feng Wu said, I'm not 100% sure, but he did snatch a teenage boy in public, and everyone on the street saw it. I came here in a hurry as soon as I heard. Thump. Lady Northern Feng smacked the table hard. That brat. Infuriated, Lady Northern Feng went back to her room to look for something. Godmother, what are you looking for? Feng Wu asked curiously. Lady Northern Feng snorted. That's why that brat didn't like any of the girls I set him up with. I know now. He likes men. The more she thought about it, the angrier Lady Northern Feng became. I'm Lady Northern Feng and my only son likes men. I can't have that. Seeing how serious Lady Northern Feng was, Feng Wu nibbed her fingers. Had the joke gone a little too far? Just then, footsteps came from outside. Mom, I heard that we have a guest. Is little Feng Wu here? Feng Sun's footsteps came from outside. Speak of the devil. Turning toward the door, Feng Wu had the greatest sympathy for Feng Sun, who was about to show up. Poor Feng Sun. He knew nothing of this. After learning that Feng Wu was at his place, he came home with the big dog, hoping that Feng Wu would treat his dog, so that he could go back to looking for the ugly girl. However, Feng Sun sensed the forbidding atmosphere before he set foot in the main courtyard. Wait. What was going on? As soon as Feng Sun stepped into the main courtyard, smack. The door closed behind Feng Sun with a loud bang. Feng Sun jumped. What was that about? He looked up to find Feng Wu inside, and when he was about to wave at Feng Wu to greet her, a stick as thick as his arm appeared out of nowhere and struck him in the back. Caught by surprise, Feng Sun was hit in the back. Ouch, Feng Sun cried out in surprise. He then looked up to see his mother, who was holding that stick with both hands and looking like she wanted to kill someone. Chapter 1094 Poor young Lord Feng. Mother, Feng Sun looked dumbfounded. He had no idea what he had done to deserve that whack from his mother. Ignoring her son's complaint, Lady Northern Feng raised the stick that was as thick as an arm, and brought it down on Feng Sun again. Mother! Why are you hitting me? What did I do? Feng Sun asked in frustration. He had come back in a hurry to eat with his sister as soon as he heard that Feng Wu was eating with his mother. The last thing he expected was a merciless beating. You brat! You're so dead today. How dare you mess around with men? Lady Northern Feng only hit him harder. Feng Sun glanced at Feng Wu. Feng Wu shrugged innocently. It's everywhere. You! Feng Sun stared at Feng Wu. He should have known. The girl seldom came here, but she was here so early today. She had come to tell on him. Feng Sun was so vexed. Quit staring at your sister. How dare you, Feng Sun? You're shameless. Holding the stick, Lady Northern Feng went on beating him continuously. Feng Sun's face wrinkled up. For it really hurt. I'm not messing around with men. Feng Sun yelled in frustration. Lady Northern Feng said, stop lying. You brought a teenage boy back home. You can't deny it. Feng Sun's face turned livid. It wasn't a teenage boy. She was a teenage girl. Lady Northern Feng paused for a brief moment. Really? It was a girl. Feng Sun said, yes, really. She was disguised as a boy. Lady Northern Feng saw the light. So, you kidnapped a teenage girl and brought her back home. Feng Sun. Seeing that Feng Sun was incriminating himself more and more with his explanation, Feng Wu was amused. The excitement then sent her into a fit of coughing. Ahem. Luckily, she had covered her mouth with her sleeve, and Feng Sun didn't see the blood she coughed out. That abominable Feng Sun. Humph. Feng Wu had almost softened, but she was then reminded of how badly Feng Sun had hurt her, and all her guilt disappeared. Feng Sun ran around in circles in the yard as Lady Northern Feng chased him. She's a thief, an outlaw. Lady Northern Feng was much more capable than Feng Sun, there was no way he could run away from her. Lady Northern Feng snorted. You kidnap her, then call her a thief? Little Feng Sun, since when did you become so glib? The false accusation almost made Feng Sun cry. Mom! I'm telling the truth. That thief stole Boss Jun's immortal spiritual fruit. Otherwise, Bao Er would be well enough to walk by now. She's wanted by Boss Jun. Lady Northern Feng wouldn't be convinced if Feng Sun had brought up someone else, but he would never lie about Jun Linyuan. Lady Northern Feng was still hesitating when, my lady, something's wrong. Steward Feng walked in. Lady Northern Feng asked, what's wrong? Steward Feng said, someone's crying and shouting outside, saying that the young lord has taken their young master. They've put out a banner and are sitting down outside our front gate. There are a lot of them and they're making a lot of noise. Lady Northern Feng glared at Feng Sun with eyes that could kill. Feng Sun was dumbfounded. That's impossible. That teenage boy was that ugly girl in disguise, there was no way that the girl's family knew she had been caught. Moreover, even if they did, they wouldn't be asking for their young master back, for she was a girl. Lady Northern Feng was furious. Impossible or not, you brought the problem home, you take care of it. Chapter 1095 Does everyone know? After that, Lady Northern Feng tossed the stick aside, then stormed off into the house. Feng Sun put the dog down next to Feng Wu. Please cure this dog for me. I still need it to find that ugly girl. After that, Feng Sun rushed out. How dare these people try to slander him? They had some balls. Feng Sun walked off in vexation, and the air around him seemed to be on fire. He would vent the anger he had received from Lady Northern Feng on these people. Feng Wu watched as Feng Sun left. She then looked at the dog, then stared at Feng Sun from behind with a strange look on her face. There was a saying, sending a sheep into a tiger's mouth. Had he just sent the dog into her hands? If Feng Sun knew that the ugly girl he was desperately trying to find was Feng Wu herself. Feng Wu shuddered at the thought. He must never know, otherwise Feng Sun would probably lose his mind. Godmother, please don't be mad. My brother is. Seeing how miserable she had made Feng Sun, Feng Wu decided to put in a good word for him. However, Lady Northern Feng cut her off before she could finish. You don't need to cover for him. He made this mess, he's going to take care of it himself. Lady Northern Feng smacked the table angrily. She then turned to Feng Wu. Is everyone really talking about Feng Sun liking men? Feng Wu said, well. Lady Northern Feng rubbed her forehead. I can't bring myself to show my face anymore. Everyone knows about it. That's just, Granny Tao, turned down all invitations this week. I'm going to stay indoors like a turtle. Granny Tao smiled bitterly. Well, the others won't be a problem, but the old master of the Xianyuan family is celebrating his birthday. The Xianyuan clan was one of the 9 major clans, and everyone had to attend the birthday celebration event for their old master. Even Northern Feng Mansion had to acquiesce. The Xianyuan clan. Feng Wu's heart skipped a beat when she heard the name. If she remembered correctly, old master Xianyuan had leads on the second broken star piece. The Feng clan was too inferior in the imperial capital to attend the Xianyuan clan's big event. Even if they could go, Lady Wang would never bring Feng Wu with her. But now an idea struck Feng Wu, and she took Lady Northern Feng's hand. Godmother, do you need me to attend for you? Wait, Lady Northern Feng's eyes lit up. That was right. She didn't want to go out, but Xiao Wu could go. The news of her being Lady Northern Feng's goddaughter had already gotten around, and all the top officials of the empire knew about it. Old Master Xianyuan should know as well. Elated, Lady Northern Feng had Granny Tao go and find a present in the storage room. Just then, heavy footsteps came from outside. Lady Northern Feng didn't have to guess to know who it was. It was indeed Feng Sun. Disgruntled, Feng Sun sat down on a stool. Feng Wu immediately poured him a cup of tea, acting all docile and obedient. Thank you, sister. Feng Sun enjoyed the attention a lot, finding his sister gentle and caring. Feng Wu thought to herself, if you find out that I'm behind all this, you'll probably want to throttle me again. Brother, what's with all the crying and shouting out there? Seeing that Lady Northern Feng was sulking silently, but was obviously eager to hear the news, Feng Wu immediately asked the question. The mention of that made Feng Sun's face twist. He was furious. Thump. Thumping his fist on the table, he said. That bastard Zhuo Qinglu. He's holding a grudge against me for what happened with Miss Fengqi, and he cooked up this scene just to make fun of me. I'll beat him to a pulp when I have some spare time. Chapter 1096 When Feng Wu comes out. Zhuo Qinglu was behind this. Feng Wu smiled a little. That guy was anything but decent. It seemed that she had done the right thing, putting a price on Zhuo Qingliu's head the night before. Hey, what's that? Feng Sun glanced at the invitation in Feng Wu's hand. It's for old Master Xuanyuan's birthday, said Feng Wu with a smile. He's one of the 7 bosses of Imperial College, and I can make use of this rare opportunity. Really? Feng Sun darted a suspicious glance at his sister. Other people had adorable, doll-like baby sisters, but he had one whose head was filled with wicked ideas. She was smart, witty, and cunning, and would never resign herself to defeat. Why did she want to visit old Master Xianyuan? Did she have a secret agenda or something? At that thought, Feng Sun looked Feng Wu up and down suspiciously. Could she really have no other plans? Feng Wu threw a dirty look at him. Of course. What other plans can I possibly have? I'm the loveliest girl. Feng Sun replied with a ha. Since when would a lovely girl skip breakfast to tell on her brother? Feng Wu rubbed her nose. Ahem. That was because. Feng Wu then threw a dirty look at Feng Sun. That was because you were being indiscreet. Don't you agree? Feng Sun smacked the table and rose to his feet. You stinky girl. However, Lady Northern Feng smacked him on the head before he could finish. How dare you talk to your sister like that? Feng Sun said, but she. Lady Northern Feng smacked him again. You're supposed to dote on your baby sister. Is that your idea of doting on her? Feng Sun gave Lady Northern Feng an aggrieved look. So, now that his mother had a daughter, he had become the forgotten son. Wait, the dog. Smacking the table, Feng Sun finally remembered this important piece of information. Feng Wu gave him a baffled look. Feng Sun was on edge. Didn't I give you the dog before I left? Please don't tell me that you've lost it. Feng Wu pointed to a corner a few steps away. There, a big, dark brown dog with glossy fur was lying on its back, fast asleep, its belly rising and falling with its breathing. Feng Sun was anxious. How can it sleep? Rushing over, Feng Sun shook the dog's head. Dog, wake up. Dog? However, no matter how hard Feng Sun shook or how loudly he roared, the dog showed no signs of waking up. Frustrated, Feng Sun turned to Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu looked perfectly innocent. Didn't you tell me to cure it? How am I supposed to do that if I don't drug it? Feng Sun was rendered speechless. If Feng Sun learned the truth. Feng Wu shuddered. He must never know. He could never find out that she was the ugly girl he was looking for. Poor Feng Sun. He had no choice but to swallow the humiliation silently under the suppression of the two women. The Xianyuan clan birthday celebration was in the evening, so Feng Wu and Lady Northern Feng started their preparations after afternoon tea. Feng Wu knew that she wasn't there for fun, but to carry out a plan. Therefore, she wanted to keep a low profile. But Lady Northern Feng didn't think that way. She believed that her stunning goddaughter didn't get the attention she deserved, not to mention that they kept calling her Failure Wu. The lady couldn't stand it. Therefore, Lady Northern Feng wanted to make Feng Wu as pretty as possible. In the end, Feng Wu had no choice but to give in to Lady Northern Feng's efforts to dress her up. 2 hours later. Feng Wu came out of the room. 1097 Going to the party. OMG. Lady Northern Feng, Granny Tao, and the others all cried out in surprise. The girl looked stunning. Her fair skin was translucent like snow and her features were exquisite. The light makeup gave her a more mature look. Her neck was slender and fair, the line of her shoulders was smooth, and her waist was so tiny that one could hold it with one hand. The floaty lower hem of her dress moved like water as she walked, and she was almost too dazzling to watch. Stunning. Everyone held their breaths and looked at Feng Wu with wide-open eyes. Even Lady Northern Feng was stunned. A girl as beautiful as her would astonish everyone at the party as soon as she showed her face. The banquet at the Xianyuan family. Because of the banquet, it was a boisterous scene at the Xianyuan family house. Guests poured into the manor in waves, and there was an uninterrupted flow of carriages and horses. Feng Wu arrived in the Northern Feng Mansion carriage. Northern Feng Mansion was one of the most prestigious families in the empire, so as soon as the carriage stopped outside the house, it was immediately greeted by someone from the Xianyuan family. The second branch of the clan was in charge of greeting guests tonight. Xianyuan Yu and his wife, Lady Yu, were waiting at the front gate. The couple went up to the carriage with an ingratiating smile, ready to say hello to Lady Northern Feng. To their surprise, a young but stunning woman came out of the carriage. And why did this young woman somehow look familiar? Xianyuan Yu and Lady Yu exchanged bewildered looks. Luckily, Lady Yu recognized Granny Tao, for the latter was always by Lady Northernfang's side. Granny Tao greeted Xianyuan Yu and Lady Yu, then explained in an enthusiastic tone, "Her ladyship isn't feeling well today and she's staying at home as requested by the doctor, who said that she isn't fit enough to walk around. This is Miss Feng Wu, her ladyship's newly adopted goddaughter." Feng Wu was here to play the fair maiden today, so she greeted the couple with her knees bent. What a pretty young lady. Feng Wu left a good first impression on Lady Yu, who found her pretty, demure, and docile. "I can tell that she's a good girl right away. Please come in." Banquets of other families were divided into male and female sections at most, but the Xianyuan clan. The guests were divided into senior and junior groups. Feng Wu was taken into the banquet hall on the left. She walked in to find an empty dance floor on the left while the area to her right was filled with oval-shaped dining tables, as well as a scattering of cushioned chairs. It had been arranged in this way so that the guests could gather in small groups and have some fun among themselves. Looking around, Feng Wu saw only young men and women, some of whom she already knew. Feng Wu frowned. She was here for the big boss, old Master Xianyuan, and had no interest in these youngsters. And from past experiences, rather than a birthday party for an old man, this was more like a venue for young people to hit on one another. Feng Wu turned to leave the room, but, "Little Feng Wu, is that you?" A familiar voice rang out behind her. Feng Wu turned around to find Ning Chenxi behind her. "Hey, it's you." Seeing a familiar face in a strange place was like running into someone from your hometown. Feng Wu couldn't help but smile at him. Ning Chenxi had never been looked at by Feng Wu like that before, and his fair cheeks soon turned pink. Recalling how he had mistaken Feng Lu for Feng Wu, he looked even more abashed. However, seeing how natural and graceful Feng Wu was, Ning Chenxi also suppressed his feelings and forced himself to calm down. He went up to Feng Wu and smiled at her. "Why are you here alone? Didn't your family come with you?" Chapter 1098 A Group Attack. Feng Wu asked, "My family?" Ning Chenxi said, "Yes. I saw Lady Wang with Feng Lu when I arrived, but you weren't with them." Feng Wu said, "Well, that's true. I didn't come here with them." Standing in a not-so-remote corner, Feng Wu and Ning Chenxi chatted casually. He was a tall, handsome boy and she was a stunning girl with an ethereal beauty. Although Feng Wu had her back to the crowd, many were still drooling over her wonderful silhouette. They couldn't keep their eyes off her. The truth was that this was an occasion set up for the influential family's third generation to find potential spouses. Feng Wu turned out to be an unexpected opponent, which gave the other girls a lot of pressure. "Who's that?" A pretty teenage girl in the center of the crowd was surrounded by other girls her age. She was none other than Xianyuan Ying, the favorite granddaughter of the Xianyuan clan and the sister of Xianyuan Yi. She was surrounded by quite a few people, some of whom were Feng Wu's old acquaintances, such as Feng Lu, Feng Sang, Zhuo Qingyu. The girl who asked the question was called Duga Yamo, and she was a prominent figure herself, for she was from the Duga clan, which was also Empress Duga's clan. Hearing her question, everyone turned their heads, following her gaze. In the secluded corner, Ning Chenxi was blushing and flustered, and one couldn't miss the excited look on his face. His eyes were twinkling, as if he had just found the most precious treasure. "Wait, isn't that Ning Chenxi?" Zhuo Qingyu cried out. She then nudged Feng Lu with her elbow. "Didn't he used to like you? I heard that he swore that he would marry you and you alone." Girls had a thing for gossip, so right away, the others joined in, teasing Feng Lu. Duga Yamo was especially enthusiastic. "Yes, that's right. I heard about that, too." "Feng Lu, why are the two of you still not married?" Feng Lu was embarrassed. Could she tell them that Ning Chenxi had mistaken her for someone else? Could she admit that Ning Chenxi had wanted to marry Feng Wu all along, and he had only made the silly mistake because of what she said? Feng Lu was already an inferior member of this group, and was only able to attend this banquet because she knew Xian Yuaning. Feng Lu smiled bitterly. There was nothing between me and Ning Chenxi, ever. Please, snapped Zhuo Qingyu, the Ning family asked quite a few influential people to propose the marriage to the Feng clan. They almost asked for my dad's help, and I know everything. Why is he all over another girl now? Dugu Yamo said, don't tell me that. Ning Chenxi was stolen by another woman. Who more could Feng Lu say? She didn't need to say anything and could just cover her mouth with a wry smile on her face. The others would make up the rest of the story that fitted their speculations. As expected, seeing Feng Lu's reaction, Zhuo Qingyu was indignant. That Ning Chenxi. He was all over you and couldn't wait to marry you. I thought he was so sincere. He's just like every other man. Dugu Yamo was ready to play the enthusiastic onlooker. Crossing her arms, she snorted and raised her eyebrow. Feng Lu, if I were in your place, I would never stand for it. The others chimed in, neither would I. Let's go have a look. I'd like to see what magic she has. Chapter 1099 How can I not know her? Xian Yuaning said, that's right. I have to know what kind of witch stole Ning Chenxi's heart. Hence, led by Xian Yuaning, the most attractive girls in this banquet headed for the corner Feng Wu and Ning Chenxi were sitting in. Seeing the girl's smooth outline and slender build from behind, Dugu Yamo sighed inwardly. From that back alone, she knew that the girl could defeat Feng Lu. By the way, before they got there, Zhuo Qingyu asked Feng Lu all of a sudden, don't you have a sister named Feng Wu? Why isn't she here? Feng Lu smirked. Why should she be? Who would invite her? The others agreed. The Feng family was not what it was before. Feng Lu had only been invited because she was Xian Yuanying's friend. Who would send an unwelcome girl like Feng Wu an invitation? Zhuo Qingyu looked sorry to hear that. I wish she were here. Xian Yuaning frowned. You like her? Zhuo Qingyu smiled. As if. I was just thinking that if she did come. Haha, there are so many of us here, and we can teach her a lesson for what she did to His Royal Highness. These girls were still holding a grudge against Feng Wu for what she did to Jun Linyuan in Proud Snowfield back then. Friendships could be formed in the strangest way among girls. They would quickly become very close when they had a common enemy, such as now, when they all hated Feng Wu. At the same time, Ning Chenxi wasn't the only man around Feng Wu, for, hello, young lady. You look so familiar. Have we met before? The man who went up to her was none other than the third young master of the Dugu clan, Dugu Yamo's older brother. He had been standing some distance away when he spotted Feng Wu's fine profile. Instantly, young Master Dugu was swept off his feet. He stood there, befuddled, then his legs moved on their own. An invisible force pulled him toward Feng Wu. Ning Chenxi frowned when he saw Dugu Mengxi. The Empress was from the Dugu clan, and even the Zhuo clan had to depend on it. It was a colossus in the imperial capital. The way Dugu Mengxi looked at Feng Wu was like a beast eyeing its prey. His eyes were glittering. Ning Chenxi felt the threat right away. However, the girls arrived before he could say anything. Dugu Yamo frowned when she saw her brother, but she still smiled. Hey, what's going on? Why is everyone here? These young people were all excellent members of their generation, both in terms of their social status and their cultivation skills. That was why all eyes had been on them the entire time. Since they had all gathered in the corner, the attention followed them there as well. Sensing the eyes on her, Feng Wu turned her head involuntarily. Oh God! Wow! SSS! Dugu Mengxi stared at the girl in disbelief. How could anyone be this beautiful? Holy shit! As for the sound of indrawn breaths, they all came from the girls who had come here to fight for justice for Feng Lu. Little did Feng Lu expect to find Feng Wu here. She was just telling everyone confidently that Feng Wu wouldn't be allowed in. Why are you here? Feng Lu stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. Moreover, she was furious. She had thought that she could show off in front of Feng Wu after receiving the invitation from the Xianyuan family, but the latter was here as well. Chapter 1100 Show the Invitation. Do you know each other? Dugu Mengshi glanced at Feng Lu. Dugu Mengshi knew Feng Lu because of his sister. Feng Lu snorted. Of course I know her. She's Feng Wu, the one who took advantage of the unconscious crown prince and kissed him. Feng Wu. Dugu Mengshi hadn't met Feng Wu before, but he had heard of her famous name. Therefore, he frowned as soon as he heard that. He shook his head and wouldn't believe her. This young lady is as noble as an immortal. How could she have done such a wretched thing? No, that can't be the case. Feng Lu almost exploded. However, Dugu Mengshi was a prominent figure. The Empress was from the Dugu family, which was far more influential than even the Zhou family. Who was Feng Lu to speak back to him? As a result, Feng Lu could only vent her anger on Feng Wu. She asked, how did you get in? Who brought you here? Ning Chenxi frowned. This Feng Lu was awful. Luckily, he had uncovered the truth quickly enough, or his life would have been ruined. Feng Wu only smiled, but didn't speak. Feng Lu stared at Feng Wu, wondering if the latter thought she could cope with the situation by keeping silent. Of course, Feng Lu wouldn't let that happen. Feng Lu believed that she had someone to back her up. Taking Xianyuan Ying's arm, she said, Sister Ying, did the Xianyuan family invite Feng Wu? Xianyuan Ying gave Feng Wu a condescending look. She knew about Feng Wu not just because of what happened between the latter and Jun Linyuan, but also because her brother had come back from school the other day in a grumpy mood. When she asked, she learned that Feng Wu had been pushing her brother around at school. Xianyuan Ying had a brother complex. To her, nothing was more important than Xianyuan Yi, her brother. That was why Feng Wu had left a bad impression on Xianyuan Ying from the very beginning. Looking down her nose, she stared at Feng Wu arrogantly. How did you get in? Feng Wu smiled. With an invitation, of course. Where is it? Xianyuan Ying stretched out one hand, gesturing at Feng Wu to show it to her. Instantly, all eyes were on Feng Wu. Upper-class families like the Xianyuan family seldom humiliated people in public like this. However, bolstered by her own special status, as well as that of her friends around her, Xianyuan Ying decided right away that she wouldn't show Feng Wu any respect. Feng Wu frowned. She had come with an invitation, but Granny Tao had it at the moment. It wasn't appropriate for Granny Tao to step into the main hall of a banquet like this. Seeing the frown on Feng Wu's face, Xianyuan Ying thought that she had a guilty conscience. Her eyes flickered and she pursed her lips contemptuously. She raised a hand to beckon someone over. Steward Yen. Steward Yen was in charge of the banquet venue. Hearing her call, he went up to her immediately. Xianyuan Ying asked with a stern look on her face, Steward Yen, you were in charge of sending out the invitations, weren't you? Steward Yen said, yes, Mississippi. Xianyuan Ying said, go find out why she was allowed in. Looking at Feng Wu, Steward Yen frowned. And who is this young lady? Anyone else would have felt flustered as well as flushed with embarrassment from being stared at by so many eyes holding ill intent. But not Feng Wu. She was unperturbed, and even smiled a little. Feng Wu is my name. Miss Feng Wu, tilting his head, Steward Yen gave it some thought, then looked at her in embarrassment. He hesitated, but still said, I sent out all the invitations myself. But I don't recall seeing Miss Feng Wu's name. Wow. You, not welcome here at the Xianyuan family residence. All eyes in the hall had already turned in this direction. Not to mention that Feng Wu had been the center of all the attention all along. Therefore, nearly everyone was staring at Feng Wu, gloating at her predicament. This was going to be good. Feng Lu was even more satisfied. Feng Wu had it coming. A duckling couldn't turn into a swan just because she wanted to. In her dreams. Xian Yuaning, you've stepped out of line. An angry voice rang out from behind Xian Yuaning. Turning around, Xian Yuaning saw that it was Gong Sun Qing. Gong Sun Qing was from the Gong Sun family, which was also one of the 9 major clans. The two families were of equal status, but that didn't mean that Xian Yuaning would necessarily listen to her. Sister Gong Sun, how about you have some tea outside? I'll apologize for the convenience after I'm done here. Xian Yuanying's meaning was very clear. She had told Gong Sun Qing to go away and mind her own business. Gong Sun Qing frowned. Xian Yuaning. Go easy on other people. Do you have any idea how unforgiving and aggressive you are now? That's not how the daughter of an old, distinguished family should behave. Xian Yuaning snorted. So, are you saying that I should just stand here and watch while some tramp sneaks into an event held for people of our status? Sister Gong Sun, this isn't your home, so of course you don't have to worry. However, I have a responsibility and obligation to make sure that all the guests can safely enjoy themselves today. Gong Sun Qing found those words preposterous. She was just standing there and talking. How can she possibly be endangering your safety? If you hadn't approached her, none of this would be happening. Although Gong Sun Qing had held a grudge against Feng Wu before, her opinion of Feng Wu had changed after the latter saved her life. Xian Yuaning decided to ignore Gong Sun Qing. She stared at Feng Wu. Are you leaving or do I have to make you? That was a rather rude question. All eyes were on Feng Wu. Many people were whispering among themselves. So, she's Feng Wu. The Feng clan has really declined. They were also one of the 9 major clans back in the day. I would leave right now if I were Feng Wu. Did Feng Wu not hear them? Of course she did, but that was why she couldn't leave. She smiled at Xian Yuaning. Your father wrote the invitation himself. If you want me to leave, he'll have to tell me in person. My father? Xian Yuaning found Feng Wu ridiculous. A petty thing like you received a handwritten invitation from my father? Who the hell do you think you are? Don't make me laugh. Feng Lu, Zhuo Qingyu, Dugu Yamo, and the others were all grinning at Xian Yuaning. Zhuo Qingyu chimed in, poking at the hornet's nest. Xian Yuaning, I thought your words meant something here in the Xian Yuan family. I guess I was wrong. TSK, Tisk. Of course Xian Yuaning wouldn't stand for that. She glared at Feng Wu, blaming everything on the latter. If it wasn't for this girl, her friends wouldn't be laughing at her. At that thought, Xian Yuaning reached out to grab Feng Wu. Get out. Now. You're not welcome here in the Xian Yuan family. Feng Wu chuckled. She sounded like she was enjoying herself. Actually, the Xian Yuan family had left an awful impression on her. She had felt a little guilty about approaching old Master Xian Yuan with a hidden agenda, but with the scene Xian Yuaning had caused, Feng Wu felt justified. The Xian Yuan family owed her now. Just then. Chapter 1102 What's her relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? Stop. A cold voice rang out a few steps away. All heads turned in that direction. The newcomers were none other than Xian Yuanyu and his wife, whom Feng Wu met at the gate earlier. It was Xian Yuanyu and Lady Yu. Uncle? Aunt? Xian Yuaning frowned when she saw the couple. Her second uncle and his wife were both talented cultivators whom old Master Xian Yuan thought of highly. If it wasn't for the fact that the couple still didn't have any children at their age, Xian Yuanyu might very well be the next clan chief. Despite her displeasure, it seemed that Xian Yuaning still respected them. Uncle, Aunt, this is the area for youngsters. How about the two of you leave us and I'll Xian Yuanyu glared at Xian Yuaning. If I leave it to you, the Xian Yuan clan will become a laughingstock of the imperial capital. You're dismissed. What a harsh tone. Xian Yuanyu had always been a stern man. With that serious look in his eyes and his dark face, he looked very intimidating. The bellow made Xian Yuaning burst into tears. Turning her head, she gave Xian Yuan, her own brother, a pleading, aggrieved look. Since this area was for the youngsters, Xian Yuan was bound to be here. However, he had been playing the bystander from the very start, watching in silence as Feng Wu was mocked and teased. He acted as if none of it was his business. However, when he saw Xian Yuaning getting scolded by a senior, he frowned. Uncle. You, too. Quiet. Xian Yuanyu's tone was very harsh and his gaze was sharper than a blade. How could he not be harsh? Miss Feng Wu here might be a neglected daughter of the Feng family, but she was Lady Northern Feng's goddaughter and was backed by Northern Feng Mansion. That was enough for the Xianyuan family to show her the highest respect. Lady Yu went up to Feng Wu and took her hand with a cordial smile. Miss Feng Wu, I'm sorry for startling you. It's all our fault. Please forgive our rudeness. She then turned to glare at Xian Yuaning. Apologize to Miss Feng Wu now. Apologize? For what? Xian Yuaning couldn't stand it anymore. Grinding her teeth, she glared at Lady Yu. Aunt, why are you on her side? She's the one without an invitation. Lady Yu smirked. How do you know she doesn't have one? Xian Yuaning turned to glare at Steward Yen. Steward Yen was frustrated. The last thing he wanted was to get involved in this strife, but now that things had come to this point, he had no choice. My lady, it's true. Miss Feng Wu doesn't have an invitation. Staring at Xian Yuaning, Lady Yu said, at the very least, even if she didn't have an invitation, what you did was still inappropriate. You're the daughter of one of the 9 major clans, you should never be so reckless and unforgiving. Do you have any idea who you've just offended? Unconvinced, Xian Yuaning turned her face away. Lady Yu then had someone bring Granny Tao here. Hearing that her mistress had been mistreated, Granny Tao was flustered. She arrived at the scene in a hurry. Miss Wu, Granny Tao took Feng Wu's hand, still not recovered from the initial shock. Is someone giving you a hard time? How dare they? How dare they pick on the daughter of Northern Feng Mansion? Who was it? Show your face. Granny Tao represented Northern Feng Mansion, the unparalleled family among the most prominent ones. Northern Feng General was in charge of a great army and was a formidable cultivator himself. Who would be bold enough to offend his family? The idea was unthinkable. The mention of Northern Feng Mansion made everyone stare at Feng Wu in astonishment. Who was this girl to Northern Feng Mansion? Feng Lu, on the other hand, was struck with realization right away. Chapter 1103 Refused to Give In. That was. Feng Lu recalled when Lady Northern Feng went to Feng Manor before and visited Fallen Star Yard herself, declaring that she would have Feng Wu as her goddaughter. Back then, Feng Lu didn't think it would happen, but now. Around her, a lot of people were murmuring among themselves. Did all of you hear that? Feng Wu is related to Northern Feng Mansion. Hey, do you think she's here on behalf of Northern Feng Mansion? What do you think is her relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? Is it possible that she's going to marry young Lord Feng? Bah! Young Lord Feng is phenomenal. That petty girl isn't good enough for him. Could she be a concubine Lady Northern Feng prepared for her husband? Lady Northern Feng must have lost her mind to do that, finding her husband a new lover. So, exactly what is Feng Wu's relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? They weren't the only ones intrigued, so were Xian Yuaning and her friends. What's your relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? Xian Yuaning pointed at Feng Wu. But, there was the sound of a crack. A hand struck down hard. Granny Tao had smashed down on Xianyuan Ying's outstretched hand. Granny Tao had been with Lady Northern Feng for many years. She used to work in the imperial palace and had served Her Majesty the Empress Dowager. Everywhere she went, she was treated with respect. Common folk might not know who Granny Tao was, but the upper-class circle was well aware of her identity. Xianyuan included. Granny Tao used to work as a disciplinary maid in the imperial palace, and when she put on a stern face, she could look quite intimidating. How dare you hit me? Xianyuan glared at Granny Tao. Granny Tao snorted. She's the daughter of Northern Feng Mansion, not someone you can pick on. Because of the unexpected quarrel, Xianyuan and Lady Kai, who had been in the hall next door, came over in a hurry. They arrived to find Granny Tao glowering at Xianyuan and the latter about to talk back. Seeing this, Lady Kai was alarmed. She rushed over and grabbed Xianyuan by the arm. Xianyuan saw her family arrive and felt even more aggrieved. Holding Lady Kai's hand, she said, Mum, they're all picking on me. Lady Kai almost rolled her eyes at her daughter. She had already been told what happened here before she came. Someone picked on her. Xianyuan not picking on them would be a blessing. At that thought, Lady Kai threw a dirty look at Xianyuan. Shut your mouth. Mum, sobbed, feeling that she had been humiliated in front of her friends. Xianyuan was aggrieved. Granny Tao couldn't care less about Xianyuan's tears. Her mistress had just been mistreated, and she wouldn't stand for it. Lady Kai, you've seen what happened. Are you going to do something about it? Lady Kai tried to defuse the situation. Granny Tao, they're just kids and are bound to have some minor conflicts. Let's just leave it to them, they'll probably make up after a while. We elders might complicate things further if we get involved. Don't you think so? Lady Kai was willing to show Granny Tao due respect, but Granny Tao was a maid, after all, and not Lady Northern Feng herself. Therefore, Lady Kai didn't think she had to pay too much attention to the old maid. Granny Tao found her words ridiculous. So, that's the verdict of the Xianyuan family. You're just going to drop it. Lady Kai smiled. It's not a big deal anyway. Granny Tao, you really shouldn't be bothered too much by it. There. Everyone, please go back to what you were doing. There's nothing to see here. Chapter 11. Oh, for that, boss June, girl. Granny Tao smirked. Lady Kai, if that's what you think. I hope you're powerful enough to withstand the fury of Lady Northern Feng. Lady Kai smiled. Granny Tao, you're making fun of me. But in fact, Lady Kai didn't think much of what Granny Tao said. That was because she thought that if Lady Northern Feng really thought highly of this goddaughter, she would have thrown a party for the event, instead of keeping it a secret. What was more, if Lady Northern Feng really deemed this goddaughter so important, why would she stay at home and only send Granny Tao here with the girl? Lady Kai drew her conclusion from this speculation. She believed that even if this Feng Wu really was Lady Northern Feng's goddaughter, she wasn't all that important to the lady. Meanwhile, in Northern Feng Mansion, no one had noticed one of the teenagers, who was also at the party. He had been at Perching Phoenix the night before. It was none other than Mu the Sixth. After losing Miss Fengqi, Mu the Sixth's family had hustled him here so that he could find a suitable woman at this event held by the Xianyuan family for the younger generation. He was neither too high nor too low in social status, and got along well with the others and had been enjoying himself. But what he hadn't expected was to find Feng Wu here, let alone see her getting laughed at. To Mu the Sixth, Miss Feng Wu was Brother Feng the Third's responsibility, and he didn't think he was superior enough to offer her any protection. Hence, he turned around and headed out. Mu the Sixth reached Northern Feng Mansion in no time. No Mercy Yard. Brother! Help! Feng Sun was in a foul mood at the moment. He had finally run into that ugly girl and had been so close to catching her, but he let her slip through his fingers. Feng Sun was infuriated. Feng Sun was so mad that he pounded his bed with his fists. He was so mad. That was why when Mu the Sixth ran into the yard, he saw Feng Sun roaring into empty air, which baffled Mu the Sixth. Brother? Mu the Sixth bit his lower lip. Turning around, Feng Sun saw Mu the Sixth and looked embarrassed. Clearing his throat to try and cover up his embarrassment, he glared at Mu the Sixth. What are you doing here? Mu the Sixth cringed a little. Brother Feng seemed to be in a bad mood and Mu the Sixth wondered if telling the latter what happened was a bad idea. Should he just drop it? Maybe Feng Wu was nothing to his brother Feng now. Hadn't Feng Sun found a new target the night before? At that thought, Mu the Sixth slowly backed away and turned to run. Intrigued, Feng Sun yelled after him, "Stop!" Mu the Sixth did as told right away. What's that about? Standing up from his bed in vexation, Feng Sun stared at Mu the Sixth, displeased. Well, Mu the Sixth scratched his head. Brother, are you still interested in little Feng Wu? Feng Sun threw a dirty look at Mu the Sixth. Shut up. She was his boss Jun's woman, what Mu the Sixth said could get Feng Sun in trouble. Mu the Sixth thought he knew what was going on right away, so he smiled. Brother Feng, that Feng Wu is in a lot of trouble. The Xianyuan family is giving her a hard time and she's so doomed. What? Feng Sun grabbed Mu the Sixth. What happened? Mu the Sixth was confused. He didn't understand why his brother Feng would look so grave and said in a hurry, Feng Wu went to the party held by the Xianyuan family, but Xianyuaning caught her, saying that she didn't have an invitation. It just so happened that Feng Wu couldn't produce one, and right now, a lot of people are. Before Mu the Sixth could finish, Feng Sun shot out like a bolt of lightning. Brother Feng. Left behind on his own, Mu the Sixth stood there, looking baffled. Chapter 1105 A High-Handed Announcement. Lady Northern Feng was taking a walk in the garden, and when she heard the noise, she asked in surprise, Mu the Sixth, what are you doing here? Why did your brother jump out like a monkey? Lady Northern Feng actually seldom saw Feng Sun move that fast. Mu the Sixth looked bewildered and said in an innocent voice, I have no idea. I thought my brother lost interest in little Feng Wu, but when I told him that little Feng Wu was being bullied at the Xianyuan manor. What? The next second, Lady Northern Feng grabbed Mu the Sixth by his collar and almost lifted him off the ground. What did you just say? Xiao Wu is being bullied at the Xianyuan place. It surprised Mu the Sixth to see the people of Northern Feng Mansion all react so extremely to what happened, and he mumbled, yes, those people in the Xianyuan manor are picking on her now. How dare they? Lady Northern Feng was furious. They're all saying that little Feng Wu doesn't have an invitation and doesn't have the right to set foot in the Xianyuan manor, Mu the Sixth added in a hurry when he saw that Lady Northern Feng looked like she was going to eat someone alive. Thump. Infuriated, Lady Northern Feng smacked a stone tablet next to her, thud. The stone tablet broke into pieces right away. How dare that Xianyuan family pick on the daughter of Northern Feng Mansion? Fine. We'll see about that. Lady Northern Feng rushed out in a rage. Meanwhile at the Xianyuan manor, little did Lady Kai know that two formidable members of Northern Feng Mansion were headed her way. She only smiled at Granny Tao. They're just kids and they bicker. Granny Tao, please don't take it too seriously. After that, she glared at Xianyuaning. Apologize to Sister Feng Wu now. Xianyuaning was reluctant and pursed her lips. Sister? Who the hell does she think she is? Her voice was not much louder than a whisper, but was loud enough for everyone to hear. Granny Tao flared up immediately. She stared at Lady Kai. Fine. Fine. Is that how the Xianyuan family is going to treat Northern Feng Mansion? I'll make sure that her ladyship hears about this. Every single word of it. Granny Tao was so mad that she had forgotten to use respectful address. Lady Kai held Granny Tao's arm immediately and smiled at the latter. Granny Tao, I'm afraid I can't agree with you. The Xianyuan family has never intentionally disrespected Northern Feng Mansion in any way. No one noticed that a tall figure had rushed into the hall at that moment. Xianyuaning was still snorting. Her. Represent Northern Feng Mansion. Who the hell does she think she is? She's my sister. A cold, affirmative voice rang out behind everyone. The crowd all turned their heads involuntarily. Feng Sun marched in through the crowd and stopped in front of Feng Wu. He was known to the others as a lively yet rebellious teenager. But right now, he was colder than ice as he stood there. He looked as overbearing as Jun Linyuan, a bloodthirsty look in his eyes. His face was cold and ruthless. Whoever he looked at lowered their heads. Feng Wu stood on Feng Sun's left. Reaching out with his long arm, he held Feng Wu's right hand up and let out an intimidating sound of rage. He announced loudly, "She's my sister. Anyone have a problem with that? Speak up." What a high-handed announcement. Many girls in the hall felt their hearts pick up speed. Before, they had found Feng Wu pitiful for being taunted in public like this. They thought that if it were them, they would have fled the scene already. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.